Antarctica isn't just an empty continent of ice, it's a time capsule. Buried beneath its frozen surface lie ghost mountains, ancient forests, and compelling clues that could point to a long-lost civilization. What secrets has the ice been keeping from us? Welcome to Mythic Index, a sanctuary for lost legends and forgotten timelines. Here, we peel back the layers of history to reveal the myths that shaped our world, from the whispers of ancient stone to the mysteries of the cosmos. If you wish to ensure you can always find your way back to this archive, please subscribe now. Let's begin a journey to a place most people will never set foot on. This destination is so profoundly isolated that even seasoned scientists, after years of preparation, only see tiny fragments of it. We are speaking of Antarctica, an enormous continent sheathed in ice. It is a landmass larger than Europe, with elevations surpassing many mountain ranges, and it possesses a climate more severe than nearly any other on the planet. For generations, however, its remoteness has served as a blank slate for human fantasy. An environment this hard to reach, hidden under kilometers of solid ice, naturally invites speculation about what secrets it keeps. This leads to one of the most compelling inquiries. Could Antarctica conceal the vestiges of a civilization that predates all of known history? The idea suggests something beyond the expected penguins and scientific outposts, something distinctly human, ancient, and possibly lost to time. It's a concept that feels like science fiction, yet holds a persistent power to ignite our wonder. The story of the frozen continent is not just about ice and quiet. It's about how we project our deepest questions onto the last uncharted territories. Instead of focusing on the Antarctica of today, our exploration will venture into what it could have been, what it might yet conceal beneath its icy shell, and why so many have looked south and wondered if Earth's first civilizations left their mark there. These theories find a perfect home in Antarctica because the continent is both a real place and a profound enigma. It presents a challenge unlike lost jungle ruins or forgotten desert temples, as it resists simple excavation. The vast majority of the land is entombed beneath an ice sheet that can reach 2 miles in thickness. Picture trying to uncover history when its layers are solid ice, piled higher than skyscrapers. This is why our knowledge of the Martian surface surpasses what we know about the bedrock of Antarctica. While satellite imagery offers hints and radar detects underlying forms, the continent's actual terrain remains almost completely hidden. This level of mystery is a powerful lure for storytellers, adventurers, and researchers alike. If a vast, ancient secret were concealed anywhere on our planet, this frozen landscape would be the most likely location. This is the context in which the notion of a lost civilization emerges. Archaeological evidence can trace organized cities and farming back about 10,000 years, with hunter-gatherer groups existing far longer. The planet itself, however, is unimaginably older. Our own species has existed for a minimum of 200,000 years. Within that immense time frame, there is more than enough room for stories to be forgotten, cultures to disappear, and evidence to be wiped clean by changing oceans, volcanoes, or immense sheets of ice. Consequently, Antarctica is often viewed as a potential time capsule, holding a chapter of history that was scrubbed from the record and sealed away from sight. This line of questioning is far from a modern invention. The continent was a fixture in the human imagination long before its existence was ever verified. Philosophers in ancient Greece theorized a vast southern continent, Terra Australis, to provide a counterbalance to the landmasses of the northern hemisphere. This was a concept born not of evidence, but of a belief in cosmic symmetry. They reasoned that for the world to be in harmony, a southern land had to exist. For centuries, cartographers would often pencil in a hypothetical southern land based on little more than hearsay. When navigators at last laid eyes on the Antarctic ice shelf in the early 19th century, the legends surrounding it were already ancient history. An old map often serves as a key piece of evidence for those speculating about a lost Antarctic civilization. Created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, the Piri Reis map depicts portions of South America with astonishing precision for its era. Proponents of the theory also argue that it illustrates the northern Antarctic coastline completely devoid of ice. Were this interpretation accurate, it would imply the continent was charted long before its modern discovery, during a period when it was supposed to have been covered by glaciers. Most academics offer an alternative explanation, positing that the map shows a warped representation of the South American coast. Nevertheless, the possibility that it portrays Antarctica remains a compelling detail that continues to capture public interest. We can also consider the faint echoes of myths found in cultures around the globe. These are tales of lands past the southern winds, of icy domains, or of lost empires at the limits of the known world. One perspective holds that such stories are purely products of imagination, molded by geography. An alternative view suggests that myths might carry distant memories of actual locations, warped over generations into legend. When these legends seem to correspond with a real, yet inaccessible, place like Antarctica, the speculation almost writes itself. Any discussion of ancient civilizations in Antarctica must also acknowledge the planet's shifting climate. The continent was not perpetually a frozen desert. Eons ago, it was a verdant landscape, rich with forests, rivers, and abundant wildlife. Discoveries of fossilized flora, alongside remains of creatures better suited to a tropical wetland, confirm this past. The continent we see today is the result of continental drift and a global cooling trend. These findings serve as a potent reminder that the land beneath the ice has a long and varied history. While the geological timeline makes it unlikely humans were present during these temperate periods, the idea isn't so impossible as to dismiss the speculation. It prompts an obvious question. If we are unearthing fossils of ancient trees and dinosaurs, what other secrets might be preserved in the ice? Modern science, far from solving all the continent's riddles, often adds to its mystique. Radar surveys have unveiled entire mountain ranges, comparable to the European Alps, concealed beneath the ice. Vast subglacial lakes like Lake Vostok contain water isolated from the world for millions of years. Deep below the surface, strange magnetic anomalies suggest structures that currently defy explanation. Every new finding of this nature fuels both scientific inquiry and imaginative theorizing, frequently blurring the distinction between the two. For while a scientist interprets this data through the lens of geology and physics, our imagination is naturally drawn to the possibility of discovering ancient ruins. Before we drift deep into the ancient past, take a second to tap the like button. Think of it as lighting a candle in this digital hall, helping other weary travelers find their way to these stories. This is where tectonic shifts become temples and geological ridges transform into lost cities. Perhaps this is the fundamental reason Antarctica serves as a focal point for such theories. The continent's allure extends beyond the mere possibility of concealment. It fulfills a human need for places that can hold our collective imagination, serving as a reminder that the Earth still possesses corners beyond our complete comprehension. These are the realms where one can genuinely admit a lack of knowledge. Within that uncertainty, entire civilizations can flourish, if only in the landscape of our minds. This continent is a dual entity, a frontier for scientific inquiry and a canvas for human creativity. The ice acts as both an impenetrable barrier and a protective shield, while legends persist as both faint whispers and resounding echoes. What lies beneath the surface could be simple rock and frozen water, or it could be a discovery that redefines our place in history. At the bottom of the globe, Antarctica has always represented more than just a landmass. It was alive in human consciousness as a concept long before its discovery, a blank slate where mystery could flourish. While modern maps and satellite imagery provide a clearer picture of its form, they haven't dispelled the aura surrounding it. Even with advanced technology, Antarctica remains a continent we cannot experience in the same way as others. The vast majority of people will never witness it firsthand. Even for those who do, they only glimpse its periphery. 99% of the continent is shrouded in an ice sheet that can be over 2 miles deep, while the rest is subjected to temperatures that make familiar life forms nearly impossible to sustain. This uniqueness positions Antarctica not only as a geographical anomaly, but as a powerful narrative we construct for ourselves. Consider the mental images other continents evoke. Thinking of Europe or Asia brings to mind iconic landmarks, sprawling cities, and diverse peoples. Africa conjures vast landscapes, incredible wildlife, and histories tracing back to the dawn of humanity. The Americas present a tapestry of mountains, rainforests, deserts, and towering skyscrapers. Antarctica is fundamentally different. It doesn't instantly suggest people or civilizations. Instead, it summons feelings of emptiness, stark cold, and a profound silence. And it is within this quiet void that our imagination begins to resonate more loudly. We instinctively fill in these gaps, as our minds are uncomfortable with leaving any space completely blank. This is a key part of Antarctica's powerful grip on people. It's more than a frozen land, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest questions. We find ourselves asking, what if there is more to the story? What if something is waiting beneath the ice? What if this empty space on the map actually contains a forgotten chapter of world history? The sheer difficulty of penetrating the ice ensures these questions lack simple answers, which only deepens the enigma. The continent's actual existence was only verified in 1820, when explorers finally witnessed it directly. Before that moment, maps often depicted a hypothetical southern landmass known as Terra Australis. Ancient philosophers theorized that the world required balance. If there was land in the northern hemisphere, a corresponding landmass must exist in the south to maintain the planet's stability. For centuries, cartographers would shade in a massive, unknown continent at the bottom of their charts, at times extending it almost to the equator. The truth only emerged when sailors braved those frigid waters. They didn't find a lush, fertile land balancing the globe, but a world of ice, wind, and peril. This transition from imagination to reality should have put an end to the speculation, but it didn't. Instead, the mystery simply changed its form. The narrative shifted from Antarctica is a paradise to Antarctica must be hiding one. This reveals a curious quality of mystery. When one notion is debunked, another frequently emerges to take its place. The fact that no one resides there permanently, combined with the immense difficulty of exploration and the near-total absence of plant life, makes it feel more akin to an alien world than a part of our own. If we look to Mars and the Moon as places of wonder in outer space, Antarctica functions as the great unknown right here at home. The silence is a major contributing factor. Anyone who has stood in a snowy landscape understands how snow and ice absorb sound. Antarctica amplifies this phenomenon on a continental scale. Picture thousands of miles where the most prominent sound is the wind, a place without bustling cities, voices, or traffic, just an immense stillness. Such quiet is exceedingly rare on Earth today, and it can be unsettling. We are unaccustomed to places where humanity hasn't left an indelible mark. Consequently, when we contemplate Antarctica, we perceive that silence as if it's concealing something, as though it possesses knowledge that we do not. The continent also forces us to confront our own limitations. Humans cannot survive there without extensive preparation. The cold is severe, with temperatures capable of plunging below -100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the winds can extinguish body heat in minutes. Even cutting-edge equipment finds it difficult to endure such conditions. It is not a destination for casual visits or spontaneous exploration. This difficulty in reaching, surviving in, and studying the continent solidifies its status as one of the least understood places on the planet. And the less we comprehend about a subject, the more readily our imagination asserts itself. This is precisely why tales of lost civilizations buried under the ice continue to circulate. If any place on Earth could conceal history in plain sight, it would be here. Scientists discuss subglacial lakes, entire mountain ranges entombed beneath glaciers, and fossils that point to a warmer, greener past. Yet, for every scientific explanation, there are those who wonder if these same discoveries could indicate a human presence long ago. The logic follows. If Antarctica once supported forests and hosted animals, why not people? And if people once lived there, might they have built something? And if they built something, could it still be there, perfectly preserved in ice, waiting for rediscovery? We don't pose these kinds of questions about many other continents. We excavate in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East and uncover ancient cities, but nobody speculates that they are hidden under miles of ice. Antarctica, however, is different. It invites this kind of speculation because it offers the ultimate hiding place. The immense scale of the ice means anything beneath it is protected, locked away like a colossal time capsule. Whether that capsule contains only geology or something more is the question that sustains the public's fascination. This imaginative spark isn't just fueled by speculation about ancient cultures. It's also ignited by the fact that Antarctica continues to yield genuine scientific surprises. Researchers were astonished when radar imaging revealed the Gamburtsev Mountains under the ice, a range as massive as the Alps, completely concealed from the world. When scientists drilled into Lake Vostok, they discovered an entire ecosystem hidden beneath an ice sheet, sealed off from the outside for millions of years. This included bacteria never seen before, thriving without sunlight. Discoveries like these are a potent reminder that even when we believe a place is fully mapped, it can still deliver shocks. And if microscopic life can endure in hiding for millions of years, the imagination naturally wonders what else might have survived. This is how scientific fact stretches into the realm of speculative thought. Antarctica's sheer scale also captivates our minds. It is the fifth largest continent, almost twice the size of Australia, yet our knowledge of it is less than that of many small Pacific islands. This discrepancy feels somehow wrong, and our minds attempt to correct the imbalance by filling the void with secrets. We instinctively assume that something so vast and significant must hold a deeper importance. Since we don't see it populated with cities and nations like other continents, we interpret those absences as evidence of something hidden. Another reason for Antarctica's pull is the human attraction to extremes. We are instinctively drawn to the highest mountains, the deepest ocean trenches, and the most forbidding deserts. Antarctica represents the ultimate extreme. It is the coldest, driest, and windiest place on Earth, a location where only the most highly specialized life can survive. In our pursuit of extremes, we also chase the mysteries they might conceal. It is no coincidence that the expeditions to the South Pole in the early 20th century were global events, celebrated with the same fervor that space landings would later receive. Antarctica was seen as the last great unknown, the point where the map simply ended. That sentiment has not completely vanished. Even with satellites orbiting above, the reality is that we have barely scratched below the surface. In that unresolved territory, our thoughts are free to wander. Some also connect Antarctica to enduring myths like Atlantis. If a great civilization was ever lost to the ravages of time, what better resting place for it than beneath a continent of ice? It's a powerful concept, not because of any proof, but because it aligns with a narrative we find compelling. A hidden world, a forgotten people, a mystery waiting to be solved. An idea like that doesn't require hard evidence for its survival. It only needs a place like Antarctica where such evidence could plausibly be hidden. So when we analyze why Antarctica captures our imagination, it's not a single factor. It's a confluence of the silence, the inaccessibility, the vast unknowns, the scientific revelations that pose more questions than they answer, the myths that refuse to die, and the intrinsic human desire to believe there is always more to discover. Together, these elements make Antarctica feel less like a frozen desert and more like a locked vault. Until that vault is completely opened, the fascination will endure. This captivation has tangible effects as well. It inspires explorers to risk their lives, motivates scientists to create new technologies for drilling and mapping, and encourages storytellers to set their narratives on its icy expanse. Antarctica may be quiet, but in its stillness, it speaks volumes to the human imagination. It seems to say, there are still places you do not know, there are still stories you have not heard. And perhaps, hidden deep under layers of ice and time, there are chapters of your own history waiting to return to the light. When most people picture a library, they see a building filled with books, with shelves holding the accumulated knowledge of centuries. But Earth possesses a different kind of library, one that isn't made of paper and ink, but of layered ice. Antarctica is more than a frozen wasteland. It is an archive, a repository that has been silently gathering information for millions of years without any need for human permission. Every layer of snowfall that settles on the continent is slowly crushed under its own weight, transforming into dense ice. As it freezes, it captures microscopic snapshots of its time, tiny bubbles of ancient air, specks of dust from faraway lands, grains of pollen, and even faint chemical traces from the atmosphere. A new layer forms each year, piling up over centuries to create an incredible vertical timeline composed entirely of frozen water. When you drill into this formation, you're not just sampling ice, you're peering directly into the past. This unique quality is what makes Antarctica both a source of wonder and an invaluable scientific treasure. Held within the ice are entire chapters of our planet's biography, recorded long before humans ever put pen to paper. These natural records are what scientists refer to as ice cores. To retrieve them, researchers drill deep into the ice sheet, carefully pulling out long cylinders of this frozen history. The oldest of these frosty documents stretch back in time more than 800,000 years. This means that when a scientist analyzes the minuscule gas bubbles trapped inside, they can essentially sample the atmosphere from almost 1 million years in the past. It's an incredible thought. The very same molecules of oxygen and carbon dioxide that once drifted over primeval landscapes, active volcanoes, ancient forests, and maybe even our earliest ancestors, have been held in suspended animation, waiting for a drill to finally set them free. Antarctica is the perfect location for this process because its environment is a natural preservationist's dream. The extreme cold halts decay in its tracks, while the thick ice provides a perfect seal against outside exposure. Furthermore, the continent's vast expanse allows for continuous, undisturbed accumulation of these layers, far from the influence of plants, animals, or human cities. Anything you might bury in the Antarctic ice today would likely remain perfectly intact for thousands of years. This makes the continent one of the most remarkable filing systems ever created by nature, which is precisely why it's often compared to a giant, frozen library. Instead of holding books, its shelves contain entire geological epochs. Looked at this way, the ice transforms from simple frozen water into a physical form of memory. Each distinct layer represents a snapshot of a single year, and sometimes even a specific season. Within these layers, you can find dust that traveled from deserts thousands of miles away or soot from long-extinguished fires, all building up like tiny footnotes in an epic historical text. Deciphering this frozen record is far from simple, requiring meticulous measurements, highly sensitive instruments, and years of expert interpretation. However, for those who learn its language, the ice reveals secrets that are unobtainable anywhere else. For instance, ice cores provide a clear history of Earth's climate fluctuations over immense periods. Scientists can reconstruct past temperatures with astonishing precision simply by measuring the ratio of different oxygen isotopes found in the ice. This data allows them to pinpoint warm and cold spells, identify ice ages, and map out the warmer periods in between. They can also follow the rise and fall of carbon dioxide levels through the millennia and see how those fluctuations corresponded with major shifts in the global climate. This very method is how we know for a fact that our atmosphere today contains more carbon dioxide than at any other time in the last 800,000 years. That's not a theory, it is a history written in ice. This frozen archive is an honest historian, and climate is just one of many tales it has to tell. You can find evidence of powerful volcanic eruptions, which appear as fine, dark bands of ash trapped within the layers. You can also uncover traces of the sun's activity, encoded in the concentrations of specific isotopes created when cosmic rays struck the atmosphere. Incredibly, even ancient bacteria can sometimes be brought back to life, microscopic organisms that have been dormant for millennia, suddenly reawakening when thawed. It's as if the ice has kept them in a state of deep freeze, waiting for an inquisitive scientist to finally wake them up. The very idea that ice can preserve things so perfectly for such immense spans of time is a natural catalyst for the imagination. If it's capable of safeguarding delicate air bubbles and microbes for hundreds of thousands of years, what else might be locked away in its depths? Could there be more complex items buried down there, like the tools, artifacts, or even structures of a yet unknown ancient people? While there is officially no evidence to support this, the possibility is captivating. After all, if the ice can protect something as fragile as a single grain of pollen, it's logical to ask why it couldn't also shield something much larger. And since the vast majority of the continent beneath its frozen surface remains a complete mystery, that question is still very much open for debate. It's also important to remember just how fragile this icy archive becomes once it's removed from its natural home. From the moment a core is brought to the surface, it must remain frozen solid through its entire journey of transport, storage, and analysis. The slightest bit of melting can destroy the historical record forever. This delicate nature is another reason the library comparison feels so appropriate. The knowledge it contains is priceless, but accessing it demands immense care, patience, and respect. You cannot simply rush in and take what you want. You must approach it slowly and methodically, understanding that much of what you find is utterly irreplaceable. The sheer timescale preserved in the ice also offers a deeply humbling perspective. We humans are accustomed to thinking in short timeframes, where a decade can feel like an eternity and a century seems like ancient history. Antarctica, however, operates on a much grander scale, reminding us that the Earth's memory is incredibly long. Its layers chronicle not just centuries, but hundreds of thousands of years, highlighting just how brief our entire history is in comparison. Whole cities rise and crumble in what amounts to the blink of a geological eye. Entire empires collapse in less time than it takes for just a few meters of ice to form. Being in Antarctica feels like standing on top of a history book so vast that reading it cover to cover is impossible. All we can do is drill small holes and take a peek at individual pages. For this reason, many scientists consider Antarctica to be our single greatest archive of the planet's authentic history. Without this resource, our knowledge of past climates, the Earth's response to change, and the patterns that might re-emerge in our future would be drastically incomplete. So, Antarctica isn't merely a mysterious setting for imaginative tales. It's a repository of hard data that helps us understand our own trajectory. But fascinatingly, the very characteristics that make it so scientifically crucial are also what make it a perfect canvas for speculation. Once you embrace the idea of Antarctica as a library of the past, it's a very small step to start wondering if some of its unread volumes might tell the story of a human presence far older than we currently believe possible. This library metaphor also sheds light on why the continent holds such a powerful fascination for us. A library is fundamentally a place of discovery. You enter its doors without knowing exactly what you might uncover. You could find what you were looking for, or you could stumble upon something completely unexpected. Antarctica works in precisely the same manner. Each new expedition returns with fresh discoveries, a new ice core, a new fossil, or a new unexplained anomaly. And even if none of these finds ever points to a lost civilization, every single one broadens our comprehension of the world. In this sense, the continent feels uniquely alive, always ready to offer up new knowledge to anyone willing to look. Consider, for instance, the existence of entire lakes that have been sealed beneath the ice for millions of years. Lake Vostok is a prime example, buried under more than 2 miles of solid ice. This massive body of water has been cut off from the surface world for at least 15 million years. It remains liquid thanks to the subtle warmth of geothermal heat from the Earth's crust below. This isolated environment could very well be home to organisms that have evolved in complete separation from everything else on the planet, a concept straight out of science fiction. And if a lake can harbor an entire hidden ecosystem, the question naturally presents itself again. What else could be preserved down there? Might there be signs of a human presence in some forgotten area, sealed away just as perfectly as those microbes in their bubbles? Even within mainstream science, there's a clear consensus that Antarctica is still holding onto many of its secrets. Huge regions of the ice sheet have never been drilled. There are valleys buried deep beneath the glaciers and entire mountain ranges that we've only glimpsed as shadowy outlines on radar maps. Every one of these unexplored places is like an unopened book on a library shelf, simply waiting for its first reader. And just as a forgotten manuscript can sometimes turn up in an old library, it's possible the ice will one day reveal something just as astonishing. This powerful act of preservation also links Antarctica to our fascination with immortality. While we know that everything eventually decays, ice slows this process down to a virtual standstill. Mummies, frozen remains, and even food can endure for incredible lengths of time when encased in a deep freeze. There are accounts of early explorers who left caches of food in the ice, only to return decades later and find them still perfectly edible. This power to essentially pause time, to keep things precisely as they once were, is an exceptionally rare phenomenon on our planet. It lends Antarctica an almost magical quality, even though the effect is pure physics. When you consider this ability to halt time, it's easy to understand why people would imagine hidden civilizations frozen beneath the ice. If you wanted to preserve a lost world, you could hardly find a better place to do it. The library metaphor becomes even more fitting when you realize that Antarctica doesn't surrender its stories without a fight. The layers of ice can sometimes be disturbed, difficult to read, or even seem to contradict one another. Often, brand new technology is required just to start decoding the information they contain. In the same way a historian might wrestle with a damaged ancient manuscript, a glaciologist must grapple with the complex, frozen code of the ice. And much like those historians, they are often stunned by their discoveries. It's also crucial to remember that our exploration of this immense archive has barely begun. The deepest ice cores we've retrieved so far reach back less than 1 million years. However, the ice sheet itself is known to be much older in certain areas. This means there are still unread pages of Earth's history waiting for us, buried even deeper in the frozen library. We are told that history is set in stone, yet so much remains buried in the sand. If you believe there are truths about our past that are still waiting to be uncovered, just type the word "hidden" in the comments. It serves as a quiet signal that you are listening. While some records are written in ice, others are drawn on paper, but they don't always provide the clarity we expect. We typically think of maps as tools of order and precision, designed to make sense of our world by translating vast oceans and continents into something we can hold. Yet, some maps accomplish the opposite, sparking more questions than they answer by appearing to show far more than they logically should. Among these puzzling documents, one stands out, a chart crafted in the early 16th century by an Ottoman admiral known as Piri Reis. At first glance, it resembles many other maps from that period, with the coastlines of South America and Africa sketched in elegant, sweeping lines. Its fame, however, stems less from what it definitively shows and more from what it seems to suggest: the inclusion of a landmass that strikingly resembles Antarctica, a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 3 centuries. The tale of the map begins in 1513. Piri Reis was not an explorer sketching new lands from his ship. He was a compiler, a cartographer who wove together information from numerous older, now-vanished charts. He wasn't inventing coastlines, but rather piecing together fragments of knowledge from earlier navigators. His depiction of the South American coast was astonishingly precise for the era, a feat in itself. But it's the map's southernmost edge that has ignited debate for generations. There, enthusiasts and certain researchers argue, is not merely the end of South America, but the coast of another continent, one that looks uncannily like Antarctica. If this interpretation is correct, it would be an extraordinary revelation. The official discovery of Antarctica didn't happen until 1820, and even then, it was just a glimpse of a shoreline through ice and fog. So how could a mapmaker from the 1500s have possibly included it? The conventional academic view offers a straightforward explanation. This supposed southern continent is just a warped and stretched depiction of the South American coastline. Cartography in the 16th century was an imperfect blend of science and artistry, making such distortions commonplace when piecing together incomplete reports. However, for proponents of the mystery, this explanation feels inadequate. They contend the visual match to Antarctica is too compelling to be a mere error. More startlingly, they propose the map doesn't just show the continent, but depicts its coast as it would appear without its massive ice sheet. This leads to a fascinating question about the map's origins. Piri Reis himself documented his sources, noting that he synthesized his work from roughly 20 different maps. These included charts from contemporary Portuguese explorers, but also, he claimed, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The implication is staggering. Piri Reis may have had access to information passed down from forgotten, ancient civilizations with advanced global navigation skills, a possibility that directly challenges our standard historical timeline. Naturally, this idea faces strong skepticism. Critics argue the coastline is far too ambiguous, easily interpreted as a cartographic mistake, and that connecting it to an ice-free Antarctica is pure wishful thinking. They contend that even if older source maps existed, there is no proof they were based on anything beyond fragmented sailors' reports. Despite this, the enigma endures. The mere possibility that a 16th-century map contains a drawing of Antarctica compels us to reconsider who might have known what about our planet and when. Adding another layer of intrigue, some analysts claim the map's coastline doesn't match the continent as we see it today, but rather its underlying landmass stripped of ice. For this to be accurate, the original survey would have had to occur thousands, if not tens of thousands, of years ago. Such a timeline sits in direct conflict with mainstream archaeology, which does not recognize the existence of humans with global mapping capabilities that far in the past. This is where speculation flourishes. Could a sophisticated ancient civilization, with navigational knowledge now lost to time, have existed? Perhaps a culture like the mythical Atlantis, or one erased by the cataclysmic end of the last ice age. If Antarctica was indeed warmer and more approachable in the deep past, it's conceivable that explorers reached and mapped its shores, with that knowledge surviving through copies until it landed in Piri Reis's hands. Even for the cautious, the map is a remarkable artifact. It serves as a testament to how information was shared between cultures, with fragments of truth passed down through generations. The map's own story adds to its mystique. Largely forgotten for centuries, it was found again in 1929, tucked away in a dusty collection at Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. Its rediscovery transformed a 400-year-old document into a global conversation piece. Its enduring appeal lies in this unique fusion of tangible evidence and profound mystery. This isn't just a legend, it's a physical object you can see and study. It is this very tension between a concrete reality and a speculative possibility that captivates our imagination. The map's connection to Antarctica's status as a great unknown amplifies its importance. With the continent's secrets buried under miles of ice, any potential clue gains enormous weight. This single piece of parchment becomes a portal. If it truly depicts Antarctica, the continent might be a repository of lost history, not just a desolate wilderness. And if it doesn't, its story still reveals our deep-seated hunger to uncover missing chapters in the human narrative. We are drawn to such puzzles because they invite us to wonder and speculate beyond the confines of our current knowledge. The Piri Reis map perfectly satisfies this craving for the unknown. It tantalizes us with hints of an extraordinary past without offering definitive proof. We are invited to envision ancient mariners charting coastlines that would later be lost to ice, and to entertain the idea that our history is far older and stranger than is commonly believed. Yet, this flight of fancy is tethered to a real object housed in a museum, making it difficult to dismiss as mere fantasy. Ultimately, even those who reject the Antarctic theory concede that other parts of the map possess an accuracy that is truly remarkable for its time. This remarkable accuracy serves as a powerful reminder that past knowledge sometimes far exceeded our modern expectations. The Piri Reis map acts as a potent symbol of what might still be hidden from us, of how much we have lost to time, and of the way mere fragments of information can endure for centuries, whispering stories we can no longer completely understand. When you juxtapose that enigmatic artifact with the continent itself, a place sealed beneath miles of ice, the connection feels incredibly powerful. The map and the continent reinforce each other's mystique, pulling us deeper into a world of speculation. This is precisely why the Piri Reis map is so frequently discussed in relation to Antarctica. Its importance isn't that it offers definitive proof of anything, but that it perfectly captures the essence of a great mystery. It represents something real yet uncertain, forcing us to confront the vastness of what we don't know. The phenomenon goes beyond a single map. It speaks to the fundamental human response to gaps in our knowledge. We instinctively fill these voids with possibilities, with dreams of lost worlds, and with the tantalizing idea that our ancestors were more advanced than we credit them for. The map keeps that question alive, and perhaps that is its true purpose. As long as the question remains, Antarctica is more than just a mass of ice. It is a story waiting to be told, a puzzle demanding a solution, and a lesson that even in our satellite-mapped world, profound mysteries can hide in plain sight, whether rolled up in an archive or buried under a frozen wasteland. Long before ships ever ventured into the frigid waters at the planet's base, tales of a great landmass to the far south were already being told. It reflects a curious habit of the human imagination. When a blank space appears on a map, we are compelled to fill it not with nothingness, but with invention. The very concept of a white continent began this way, not as a discovery, but as a whisper carried through myths and folklore across centuries, until explorers finally gave it a physical form. The ancient Greeks were among the first to theorize about such a place. Driven by a belief that the world needed balance, their philosophers argued that symmetry required a southern land to exist as a counterpart to the land in the north. They named this hypothetical continent Terra Australis, the southern land. For them, its existence wasn't a question, but a logical necessity for a complete and harmonious Earth. Consequently, a massive landmass was drawn stretching across the bottom of their maps, born not from exploration, but from pure philosophical expectation. It's fascinating to see how early geography was often shaped more by such belief systems than by direct observation. But this idea didn't originate solely with the Greeks. Other traditions contain echoes of hidden lands at the ends of the earth. Polynesian navigators shared stories of journeys into colder southern waters, though their myths often blur the line between reality and the realm of gods and spirits. Similarly, some South American legends allude to frozen realms or distant lands blanketed in ice, although distinguishing ancient cultural memory from later interpretations is a challenge. Across diverse cultures, a persistent idea emerged of something immense waiting out there, unseen, silent, and perhaps forever unreachable. This concept of a great southern land endured, even as Europe transitioned from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance. It consistently appeared on maps as a vast, empty region at the bottom of the world, sometimes embellished with drawings of strange beasts or imagined mountains. These depictions were not reports from actual voyages, they were reflections of prevailing myths and speculation. Yet they were significant, as they reinforced the notion that the unknown wasn't an empty void, but a space full of possibility. Terra Australis evolved from a geographical theory into a character within the human imagination, an unseen partner in the grand design of the world. Later, as explorers began to push farther into the southern oceans, they carried these myths with them. Some believed they had glimpsed the fabled land, only to find it was just an island or a mirage in the fog. Others returned with exaggerated tales of colossal icebergs and furious storms, which only deepened the continent's mysterious aura. Antarctica was not formally discovered until the 19th century, yet for centuries prior, It had already existed in stories that were half believed and half invented. What's truly interesting is how these myths outlasted the facts that eventually replaced them. Even after Antarctica was confirmed to be a continent of ice, the older stories didn't simply vanish. Instead, they transformed. People began to wonder if the legends of Terra Australis weren't entirely fictional, but were perhaps distorted memories of a time before the ice. If ancient cultures spoke of southern lands, maybe they possessed knowledge that we had forgotten. This line of thought opens a door to tantalizing speculation about ancient civilizations that might have seen Antarctica in a greener state. Some researchers have even drawn connections between the myth of Atlantis and the idea of a lost white continent. The legend of an advanced civilization destroyed by a cataclysm resonates powerfully with the image of a landmass hidden under ice. While Plato's Atlantis was said to lie in the Atlantic, storytellers have moved it all over the globe in their imaginations, and Antarctica became a leading candidate. After all, what better place to hide a lost civilization than beneath a 2-mile-thick ice sheet? This overlap of myth and geography is a key part of Antarctica's enduring fascination. Echoes of a white continent appear in subtler forms as well. The Norse sagas, for instance, describe voyages into icy waters and lands of endless night. While these almost certainly refer to Greenland and the Arctic, the imagery strikes the same chord, a frontier of ice marking the boundary of the known world. Humans have always projected a sense of mystery onto frozen landscapes, viewing them as thresholds between the familiar and the unknown. As the largest of these icy frontiers, Antarctica naturally became the focus of all those projections. Folklore also has a way of weaving real experiences into mythical narratives. Sailors returning from the south told of vast walls of ice, strange creatures they mistook for monsters, and waters so hostile they seemed cursed. These accounts became oral traditions and written legends, serving not as factual reports but as cautionary tales. In many ways, these myths were less about Antarctica itself and more about what it represented: the unreachable, the unknowable, and the ultimate edge of the world. In storytelling, such places are vital, as they provide a backdrop for our deepest questions about what lies beyond our current understanding. Even today, those ancient myths persist. We still speak of Antarctica with a unique reverence, as if it's not just another continent but a secret one. When scientists make discoveries there, the news is met with a sense of awe that transcends the scientific facts, as if they are touching something forbidden. Modern science, in a way, is continuing the same process myth began, filling a blank space with meaning. The themes in these stories are strikingly consistent across cultures: a faraway land, often cold and hidden, but always significant. This suggests a universal human psychology at play. Perhaps we need to believe in hidden places to feel that the world still holds mysteries. And more than any other land, Antarctica has kept that role perfectly intact. This also explains why the possibility of ancient civilizations remains so compelling. If myths carry faint echoes of real events, perhaps they point to cultures that saw Antarctica in a warmer age. The ice covers so much that we simply cannot dismiss the idea entirely. The idea of ancient societies buried by ice emerged from a profound human need. It reflects a longing to believe that our species has origins far older and more magnificent than our current understanding suggests. Because of its quiet and enigmatic nature, Antarctica became the ideal surface onto which these projections could be cast. Consequently, the legend of a white continent persists, not only in antiquated maps or deep philosophical ponderings, but also in the very language we use to discuss Antarctica today. We often speak of it as though it doesn't fully belong to our world, almost as if it exists in an entirely different category. This very tone functions as a kind of modern folklore, which, despite its contemporary feel, is driven by the same urges that birthed the ancient myths. We spin tales about pyramids concealed beneath the ice, clandestine military installations, and forgotten archives of human history just waiting for the Great Thaw. These narratives are not fundamentally different from the legends of Terra Australis. They are merely new chapters added to an ongoing tradition. This tradition holds significance because tracing it from the ancient Greeks through the Renaissance and into modern speculation reveals an unbroken line of thought. Antarctica has always been conceived as more than just geography. It's been a symbol, a myth, and a mystery. Regardless of whether it actually conceals the ruins of a long-lost culture, the continent has already secured a vital role within the human imagination. Its description as a white continent has always been true in more than one sense, white from the snow and ice, but also white like an empty page, beckoning for new stories to be written upon it. This is why, even in our age of advanced satellite technology, we continue to frame our conversations about Antarctica around its secrets. The myths assigned it this role centuries ago, and the sheer reality of its inaccessibility ensures that role endures. In many respects, the folklore and the science work in tandem. One compels us to keep asking questions, while the other drives us to keep searching for answers. Their combined effect guarantees that the white continent never completely sheds the legendary echoes of its past. And for as long as those echoes persist, we will be driven to contemplate not just what Antarctica is, but what it once could have been. The concept of lost civilizations is an idea that never truly fades away. It can be discovered in ancient legends, philosophical texts, contemporary fiction, and the speculative theories that orbit the fringes of accepted history. The premise is straightforward yet incredibly potent. That long ago, societies existed that were just as advanced, or perhaps even more so, than any we know from our historical records. These societies were then catastrophically destroyed, completely erased, or deliberately hidden from view. Its grip on our imagination comes from how it challenges the established boundaries of our knowledge. The history documented in textbooks and taught in classrooms represents only a minuscule portion of humanity's total time on Earth. While modern humans have been around for at least 200,000 years, our clear records of civilization only extend back about 10,000 years. That vast chronological gap provides an enormous space for the imagination to roam. When people consider Antarctica's immense, untouched, and concealed landscape, it stands out as one of the most logical places to project these visions of forgotten societies. A part of this deep fascination stems from an awareness of just how delicate human memory truly is. Civilizations emerge and civilizations collapse, frequently leaving behind nothing but scattered fragments. Great cities turn to dust, sacred temples are buried, written knowledge is lost, and over the course of centuries, entire cultures can disappear from the observable record. The Mayans, for example, once erected vast cities across Central America, yet by the time Europeans made contact, many of these urban centers had already been reclaimed by the jungle. In Cambodia, Angkor was once the planet's largest metropolitan area, but for hundreds of years, it was forgotten by all but the local inhabitants. Even within deserts, where the arid conditions are ideal for preserving ruins, enormous cities can fade from historical memory until they are stumbled upon by archaeologists. If such disappearance can occur in places where rock and soil are the primary hurdles, what might be possible in Antarctica, where a sheet of ice 2 miles thick blankets everything? It requires little effort to envision that if a civilization had once thrived there, the ice could have entombed it so perfectly that we would remain entirely unaware. That is, at least until we developed a method to see what lies beneath. Then there is the crucial element of timing. The Antarctica we see today, a frozen wasteland, is not how it has always been. Fossil discoveries prove that it was once a warm continent, covered with lush forests and crisscrossed by rivers and lakes. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs roamed its lands. Long after they vanished, the continent continued to support a variety of plant and animal life. Even as recently as a few million years ago, some regions of Antarctica were significantly less icy than they are now. The question that persists is whether humans, or our ancestors, could have inhabited the continent during one of its warmer epochs. If they did they leave any traces of their culture, such as tools, art, or even cities? The consensus among scientists holds that this scenario is improbable, primarily because modern humans had not yet migrated that far across the globe at the time. However, the absence of absolute certainty leaves the door ajar for speculation, and speculation always flourishes in the presence of mystery. Some theorists look to global myths as possible reverberations of these lost societies. Atlantis is the most renowned example, a narrative passed down by Plato describing a highly advanced civilization that was annihilated in a single catastrophic day and night. While academics generally interpret this tale as an allegory about the dangers of pride and hubris, for millennia people have questioned if it might have been rooted in the memory of a real event. If it was, where was it located? Among the various proposed sites, Antarctica has been a candidate. This theory posits that if a civilization flourished there when the continent enjoyed a temperate climate, a sudden polar shift and rapid glaciation could have obliterated it, burying its remnants deep beneath the ice. It's a spectacular notion that resonates with our innate human understanding of catastrophe and loss. Another factor contributing to our dreams of subglacial civilizations is that Antarctica feels uniquely constructed to conceal them. In contrast to deserts, jungles, or mountains, where ruins can eventually emerge from the landscape, Antarctica maintains a perfect seal over everything, locked under immense layers of ice. It is almost as if the continent were specifically designed for the purpose of keeping secrets. When radar scans penetrate the ice to reveal mountains, valleys, or lakes hidden below, it's difficult for people to not wonder what else might be concealed down there. Scientists will interpret these features as natural geological formations, but the human mind has a strong preference for the extraordinary. A natural ridge becomes the remnant of a wall. A vast, flat subterranean expanse is imagined as the roof of a buried complex. Our imagination takes the raw scientific data and embellishes it with compelling stories. Psychology is also a key driver. We humans have a natural inclination to see ourselves as characters in a much grander narrative. The thought that we are the first and only advanced civilization on this planet can feel isolating. Believing in prior, lost civilizations connects us to something larger, older, and suggests that humanity's roots run far deeper than we currently recognize. It provides a sense of continuity, the feeling that we are inheritors of a legacy that extends much further back than our history books record. With its inherent nature, Antarctica serves as the perfect vessel for this dream. It is immense, it is hidden, and it is silent. It offers neither confirmation nor denial, it simply waits, and within that state of waiting, our imagination flourishes. We also entertain dreams of civilizations under the snow, because we are conscious of how little of our own planet we have genuinely explored. The floor of the ocean, for instance, remains largely unmapped. We regularly discover new species in remote jungles and deep caves. Archaeologists, armed with new technologies, are still uncovering entire cities in forests previously thought to be empty. If all of this can occur in relatively accessible locations, how much more might be waiting in a land that we can barely set foot on? Antarctica serves as the ultimate reminder that we do not know everything, and that vast unknown invites us to fill the voids with tales of lost cultures. There is a cultural element at play as well. Lost civilizations have always been a staple of storytelling because they mirror our own anxieties and aspirations. They serve as a warning that even the greatest societies are vulnerable to collapse. At the same time, they inspire us by proposing that human potential has been immense for a very long time. Consider the sheer number of books, films, and theories that center on rediscovering an ancient people who possessed advanced knowledge. This theme resonates so deeply because it touches upon something fundamental within us, the desire for continuity and for a connection that spans across time. With its impenetrable veil of ice, Antarctica becomes one of the most dramatic possible stages for this powerful theme. If such a civilization ever existed anywhere, surely it would be here, hidden beneath a mile of frozen history. Another reason Antarctica so effectively fuels these dreams is the simple reality that evidence is incredibly difficult to obtain. Unlike other theories about lost civilizations where ruins or artifacts can be unearthed and debated, Antarctica keeps everything out of reach. This ensures the debate is never truly settled. There is always just enough space for hope, for possibility, and for the imagination to extend beyond the known facts. In a peculiar way, it is the very absence of evidence that grants the idea such staying power. So long as the ice remains, the answer can be neither confirmed nor refuted. It's also important to recognize that humanity's fascination with hidden worlds is not a new phenomenon. We have always told stories about secret lands, subterranean cities, or places concealed by the natural world. Antarctica simply offers the most spectacular real-world backdrop for these age-old narratives. It is not a mythical land. It is a real place, but one that hides an entire continent's worth of secrets beneath a frozen veil. The image we have of Antarctica is of an endless, simple desert of white stretching in every direction. The reality of what lies under that ice, however, is anything but simple. More than just frozen water, the colossal ice sheets are an immense blanket concealing mountains, valleys, rivers, and lakes. This hidden landscape is every bit as complex and varied as any other on Earth. The crucial difference is that nearly all of it remains sealed away, profoundly unseen, and almost entirely unreachable. This very intersection of the known and the unknown is where science and speculation converge. Every new piece of data that emerges from beneath the ice prompts questions not just about geology or climate, but about what else might be preserved there. Scientists truly began to pull back the curtain on Antarctica's concealed world in the mid-20th century, when radar technology first allowed them to peer beneath the surface. What they discovered was nothing short of astonishing. Entire mountain ranges, like the Gamburtsev subglacial mountains, a chain stretching for hundreds of miles and reaching heights comparable to the European Alps, were found completely entombed under the ice. They located vast valleys, carved by ancient rivers, perfectly preserved despite having seen no flowing water for millions of years. Subglacial lakes like Lake Vostok, Lake Whillans, and Lake Mercer were revealed, each one sealed away under thousands of feet of ice. These bodies of water have been isolated from the surface for eons, harboring unique ecosystems that have evolved in absolute darkness. These findings proved that Antarctica is not just a flat sheet of ice. It is a continent with landscapes as dramatic as any on our planet, just hidden beneath a frozen shell. From a scientific standpoint, this is endlessly fascinating, offering a unique window into ancient climates, geology, and life. Yet from a speculative perspective, it is equally irresistible. The core question becomes unavoidable. If entire mountains, valleys, and lakes can remain hidden for millions of years, what else could be concealed there too? The sheer thickness of the ice, reaching up to 2 miles in some places, means that anything built or left behind during a warmer era could still be flawlessly preserved. The ice acts as both a protective shield and an impenetrable barrier, simultaneously protecting and hiding whatever it covers. One of the most remarkable discoveries has been the realization that a whole network of rivers flows beneath the ice. Meltwater, created by immense pressure and geothermal heat from below, travels through channels that connect lakes and carve unseen pathways through the dark. This hidden plumbing system is an entire subterranean world of water. While this raises countless scientific questions on its own, for the imaginative mind, it raises others. Could these dark rivers have once been open to the sky, accessible to humans or even other civilizations during a warmer period? Might the valleys, now buried under miles of ice, have once been fertile ground for life? These possibilities invite speculation for the simple reason that so little is known for certain. Adding another layer to the enigma are the magnetic anomalies detected under the ice. In certain regions, scientific instruments have picked up unusual readings, suggesting something massive and dense is buried deep within the glaciers. Geologists explain these as variations in the Earth's crust, perhaps the result of meteorite impacts or unusual rock formations. To the speculative mind, however, they can look like something else entirely. The notion that these anomalies could be the remnants of ancient structures, maybe even entire cities or pyramids, has taken root in popular culture, an idea fed by the fact that we cannot simply go down there and check. The mystery will remain unsolved as long as the ice in those locations remains unpenetrated. Science itself often acknowledges that Antarctica could still hold major surprises. Nearly every expedition seems to uncover something unexpected. When researchers finally drilled into Lake Vostok, for instance, they found bacteria that had survived for millions of years without sunlight, thriving in a completely isolated ecosystem. That discovery alone ignited conversations about how life can persist in the most extreme environments. If microbes can flourish while sealed under ice for eons, what other forms of life could have endured in hidden pockets of the continent? The very discovery of living organisms shows Antarctica is not as lifeless as it seems, and where there is life, speculation about more complex forms will naturally follow. Satellite imagery has also blurred the line between scientific observation and imaginative theory. Occasionally, strange shapes are spotted from orbit, geometric lines or symmetrical formations that fuel ideas about buried structures. While most of these turn out to be natural features created by ice movement, rock outcroppings, or even shadows, the human brain is hardwired to recognize patterns, particularly those that appear artificial. When someone sees a triangular formation in a satellite photo, the mental leap to imagining a pyramid under the ice is almost automatic. The allure of that possibility often remains, even after scientists explain the natural origins. Then there are the stories, some exaggerated and some with a kernel of truth, about parts of Antarctica being restricted or off-limits. In reality, most of these restrictions are for environmental protection or logistical safety, but this perceived secrecy inevitably fuels speculation. People begin to wonder if the goal is truly to preserve a fragile ecosystem or to keep monumental discoveries hidden from public view. The idea that something extraordinary has been found and is being kept secret has become a persistent theme in modern lore. Although the scientific community does not support these claims, the continent's remote and inaccessible nature makes them difficult to completely disprove in the minds of those who want to believe. Even mainstream science sometimes presents facts that sound almost like science fiction. Research confirms that Antarctica was once a lush, green continent, home to forests, rivers, and a climate that could have supported complex life. The discovery of plant and even dinosaur fossils validates this ancient, warmer world. When people learn that Antarctica was once habitable, their imagination takes another leap. If it was green and warm, could humans or a pre-human civilization have existed there? Science tells us the timelines do not match up, but this gap doesn't feel insurmountable to the imagination, especially when set against the vast sweep of geological time. Ultimately, this tension between science and speculation is not necessarily a conflict. In many ways, they feed each other. Science reveals new, incredible data, mountains under the ice, rivers in the dark, and fossils from a green past. Speculation then takes that data and weaves it into stories by asking a simple question. What if? Even when those stories venture far beyond what the evidence supports, they serve a vital purpose. They remind us that discovery is not just about collecting facts, but about experiencing wonder. Antarctica is one of the few places left where that sense of wonder can still flourish, precisely because so much of it remains unknown. Perhaps that is the real heart of the matter. Most of our world feels thoroughly mapped, measured, and explained. We can view satellite images of almost any corner of the globe, but not here. Knowledge grows when it is shared. If you know a fellow seeker, or just someone who needs a peaceful escape into the past, feel free to share this video with them. Here, some of the continent's most profound enigmas aren't found on the surface at all. The towering glaciers and endless snowfields are merely a veil. The true secrets are buried miles down, in hidden lakes sealed away from the outside world for millions of years. These are not just bodies of water, they are entire worlds locked in complete darkness, existing under crushing pressure. Their scientific importance is immense, but they also possess a mysterious allure, forcing us to wonder what could possibly survive in such profound isolation and what stories they hold about Earth's past. and even the potential for life elsewhere in the cosmos. Of all these subterranean seas, Lake Vostok is the most celebrated. It rests beneath more than 2 miles of solid ice, making it one of the most secluded environments on our planet. Its discovery in the 1990s, using radar imaging, sent shockwaves through the scientific community due to its astonishing size. Stretching over 150 miles long and 30 miles wide, with depths approaching 3,000 feet, Lake Vostok is as vast as one of North America's Great Lakes. It ranks among the largest lakes on Earth, yet no human eye has ever seen it directly, hidden as it is by that impenetrable shield of ice. The sheer realization that such a colossal body of water could exist, completely concealed, fundamentally reshaped our concept of Antarctica's interior. What makes Lake Vostok and its counterparts so captivating is the sheer length of their isolation. For a minimum of 15 million years, and possibly much longer, the lake has been hermetically sealed beneath the ice, devoid of sunlight, wind, and weather. Consider that for a moment, an ecosystem locked in a time capsule for a period that dwarfs the entire history of human civilization. In these dark, high-pressure waters, life has been forced to adapt to conditions we can barely comprehend. When scientists finally managed to drill into Lake Vostok, they discovered traces of microbial life. These were bacteria that had managed to survive in total seclusion, relying on chemical energy sources instead of the sun. While microscopic, their existence is proof of an extraordinary principle. Life can endure in places that appear utterly inhospitable. And Lake Vostok is not an anomaly. Over 400 subglacial lakes have now been identified all across Antarctica, interconnected by a network of hidden rivers and channels. Some are small, while others are immense, but they collectively form a secret aquatic landscape sprawling beneath the ice sheet. Each one represents a self-contained natural laboratory, a time capsule that could hold unique life forms and perfectly preserved records of ancient climates. For scientists, drilling into these lakes is driven by more than just curiosity. It is a quest to understand how ecosystems function in extreme settings, to piece together Earth's history, and even to find parallels to other worlds. If life can flourish in Lake Vostok, it strengthens the case that life could also exist in the icy oceans of moons like Europa or Enceladus, where water is similarly trapped beneath a frozen crust. The search for life in Antarctica's hidden lakes is a slow and painstaking process. Penetrating 2 miles of solid ice without tainting the pristine water below is a monumental technical challenge. Researchers employ specialized clean drilling technologies to prevent surface microbes from corrupting their findings. Once samples are finally brought to the surface, they are analyzed with meticulous care. The stakes are incredibly high, as any discovery could rewrite the textbooks on biology. Already, reports have emerged of unusual bacteria and other microscopic life, organisms perfectly adapted to total darkness, immense pressure, and mineral-heavy water. These are not the sun-driven ecosystems we know. They are powered entirely by chemistry, drawing energy from reactions between water, rock, and the planet's geothermal heat. This is where scientific fact naturally fuels speculation. If simple microbes can survive for millions of years under the ice, could something more complex also exist? Is it possible that small animals, adapted to the eternal dark, swim in those depths? While science has yet to find any such evidence, the possibility is tantalizing, especially when we remember how frequently life has surprised us in other extreme places. We have discovered creatures thriving near deep-sea hydrothermal vents, organisms living inside solid rock, and life flourishing in boiling hot springs. So when we consider Lake Vostok, it's only natural to ask if something more than microbes is waiting to be found. Some researchers even theorize that these lakes could preserve ancient DNA or evidence of past ecosystems, frozen snapshots of Earth's biological history. If remnants of plants or animals from a warmer, greener Antarctica were washed into these waters before the ice sealed them off, they might still be there, perfectly preserved in the dark. That idea carries profound implications, as it could give us direct proof of what Antarctica looked like before it froze. It could reveal how its climate shifted, how life responded, and perhaps even answer questions about whether early humans ever set foot on the continent. For those who lean toward theories of lost civilizations, these hidden lakes are an irresistible focal point. The logic is simple. If nature can preserve microbes for millions of years, could it not also preserve artifacts, tools, or even entire structures? While this idea stretches the available evidence, it captures the imagination precisely because the lakes are so unreachable. No one can say with absolute certainty what lies at the bottom of Lake Vostok, because no one has ever been there. That silence creates a void, and into that void, the most extraordinary ideas are drawn. The very existence of Lake Vostok also inspires comparisons to myths and legends. Some envision it as a kind of underworld, a hidden kingdom echoing ancient folklore of subterranean realms. Others link it to the idea of Atlantis, not as a sunken city, but as a civilization buried beneath an eternal ocean of ice. Regardless of their plausibility, these interpretations reveal how deeply these hidden waters stir our collective imagination. Discoveries at other lakes have only added to the intrigue. Take Lake Whillans, which sits under less ice than Vostok. In 2013, it became the first subglacial lake to be directly sampled, and researchers found living microbes thriving in its cold, dark waters. This was confirmation that life is not just possible, but present under the Antarctic ice, making the speculation around larger lakes like Vostok feel even more grounded. Then came Lake Mercer. When it was sampled in 2019, scientists found not just microbes, but the tiny remains of ancient plants and animals, suggesting the lake was once connected to the ocean. These findings demonstrate that Antarctica's hidden waters are not static curiosities, but a dynamic, interconnected system we are only just beginning to comprehend. The sheer scale of it all highlights just how little we truly know about what lies beneath. The mental image most people have of Antarctica is of a vast, flat sheet of ice, a featureless white desert stretching to every horizon. This perception, however, couldn't be more wrong. Concealed beneath that frozen crust is a landscape of staggering complexity, and among its most astonishing features are its mountains. Entire ranges that soar as high as the Alps lie buried so deep that they remained completely unknown until radar technology finally peeled back the icy veil. These hidden peaks are often called ghost mountains, a fitting name for features that are both undeniably real and yet totally invisible. They are the silent architecture of the continent, shaping it from below, unseen by any human eye. Their discovery adds another profound layer of mystery to Antarctica, one that connects modern scientific inquiry, deep geological time, and tantalizing speculation about what this world was once like. The most celebrated of these ranges is the Gamburtsev Mountains, first detected during a Soviet expedition in the late 1950s. Using seismic instruments, scientists picked up the faint echoes of peaks and valleys far below the ice. They had uncovered a mountain system that stretched for more than 700 miles, with summits rising over 10,000 feet. To grasp the scale, this is a range comparable in size to the European Alps, completely entombed under nearly 2 miles of ice. No one had ever laid eyes on it or stood on its peaks, yet it had been there all along. The shock of this discovery was immense. The idea that entire mountain ranges could lie hidden from humanity seemed almost unthinkable. What makes the Gamburtsev Mountains even more puzzling is their apparent geological youth. Evidence suggests they are not ancient, eroded remnants, but have a relatively young structure, as if they were uplifted or rejuvenated by geological forces long after they first formed. Their true origin remains a subject of debate, with theories ranging from ancient continental rifting to more recent tectonic events. Whatever the explanation, the existence of such a massive, enigmatic range confirms that the continent holds secrets we have not yet fully grasped. And the Gamburtsev Range isn't the only one. Other subglacial mountains crisscross the continent, their forms revealed by penetrating radar and satellite imaging. Some appear rugged and sharp, others are smooth and worn, and many are cut through by deep valleys that hint at a time when rivers flowed between them. Once you realize these landscapes existed before the ice entombed them, it becomes obvious that Antarctica was once a profoundly different place. It had mountains, rivers, plains, and coastlines, all shaped by a climate far warmer than today's, a world where life could thrive. Naturally, the thought of such ghost ranges sparks the imagination. If mountain systems as large as the Alps could go unnoticed for millions of years, what else might be hidden down there? Could there be deep valleys that once supported ancient forests? Are there caves that might have preserved plant and animal remains? Some even speculate about finding traces of ancient human activity, if people ever managed to reach the continent during one of its warmer periods. While mainstream science doesn't support this last idea, the simple fact that we missed something so enormous keeps the door of possibility open in our minds. These buried mountains also provide invaluable clues about Antarctica's climate history. To be covered in ice, they first had to be free of it, towering over landscapes that might have looked much like modern mountain ranges elsewhere on Earth. Fossil evidence found in other parts of the continent supports this picture, with discoveries of leaves from ancient forests, preserved pollen grains, and even traces of dinosaurs, all pointing to a time when Antarctica was green, warm, and very much alive. The ghost ranges serve as a powerful reminder that this continent has cycled through vastly different climates and epochs. Their presence also deepens the mystery of Antarctica's isolation. Today, exposed mountains actively influence climate, shape weather patterns, and create habitats for life. Buried under ice, however, these ranges are silenced. Their valleys are filled, their peaks smothered, and their influence on the world above is completely cut off. It's as if an entire world was locked away, leaving only its frozen shell behind. This is part of why they are called ghost ranges. They are present, but they no longer act upon the world. From a scientific perspective, these ranges are crucial for understanding how the Antarctic ice sheet first formed. The Gamburtsev Mountains, for example, are thought to have provided the high-altitude anchor point, where the East Antarctic ice sheet began to grow around 34 million years ago. In that sense, these mountains are the literal and figurative foundation of the ice, making them vital for any attempt to reconstruct our planet's climatic history. But as always, where science provides an explanation, speculation adds a story. Some researchers outside the mainstream have suggested that radar scans of the subglacial mountains show shapes too regular to be natural, resembling pyramids or other structures made by intelligent hands. These claims are not supported by evidence, but they continue to circulate because the imagery is often vague and open to interpretation. The human brain is wired to recognize patterns, and when looking at the grainy outlines from remote sensing, it's easy to see what you want to see. These buried ranges also invite comparisons to myths of hidden lands. In some versions of the Atlantis story, the lost civilization was swallowed by the sea or buried by ice. The image of entire mountains being erased by a changing climate resonates with those tales. It's not hard to imagine societies vanishing, their cities left in ruins inside valleys no one can reach. While the evidence is absent, the symbolism is potent. The ghost ranges become a metaphor for memory itself, massive and enduring, but covered over by time until only faint traces remain. Practical exploration of these mountains is still in its infancy. Drilling through miles of ice to reach the bedrock is one of the most difficult engineering tasks imaginable. Most of what we know comes from radar, seismic surveys, and satellite data, leaving much still unknown. We don't even know for sure what kinds of rocks make up these colossal, hidden ranges. What secrets might be entombed within the valleys of these hidden mountains? Could ancient sediments tell tales of long-gone rivers or even oceans? Each possibility opens a door to both disciplined scientific inquiry and unbridled speculation. More than just a mystery, these ranges serve as a powerful link, tying the frozen continent into the grand geological narrative of our planet. They demonstrate that this isolated landmass isn't some strange anomaly, but was forged by the very same forces that shaped every other continent. The same power of plate tectonics that raised the Himalayas also built these mountains. The same forces of erosion from rivers that carved other valleys shaped theirs. And the same glaciers that sculpted slopes across the world also left their mark here. The crucial difference is that in Antarctica, a colossal sheet of ice descended and locked it all away. In this light, Antarctica is less of an alien world and more of a mirror to our own, reflecting how entire landscapes can be transformed and then concealed by the passage of time. And for anyone fascinated by the idea of lost civilizations, the Ghost Mountains offer a truly irresistible backdrop. Picture a version of Antarctica that was lush and warm, where rivers meandered through green valleys and great forests climbed the mountain slopes. In this world, people could have arrived and established communities, potentially flourishing for generations. But then, imagine the climate beginning to turn. Glaciers started their relentless advance, a slow-motion cataclysm swallowing the landscape whole. Today, nothing would be left on the surface, but perhaps deep within those now-sealed valleys, something small could have endured. While there is no proof for this narrative, it aligns so perfectly with the mystery of the Ghost Mountains that its appeal is undeniable. Yet beyond pure speculation, the known reality of these mountains is staggering enough. A mountain range as vast as the European Alps lies completely concealed from view, having existed in total silence for millions of years. This single fact is a powerful testament to the gaps in our understanding, a humbling reminder that even in an age of satellite imagery, much of our own planet remains undiscovered. If something so enormous can go unnoticed, what other wonders might still lie hidden in the most remote corners of the Earth? The Ghost Mountains, therefore, remain both a scientific puzzle and a powerful symbol of possibility, real, mapped, and measured, yet still mysterious and open to the power of human imagination. They prove that our world still holds the capacity to surprise us, and that beneath the ice lie landscapes as grand as any we can see, waiting patiently for their story to be told. Until that day, they will continue to haunt our imagination, not with fear, but with the quiet promise of the unseen. The modern view of Antarctica is one of an endless frozen wasteland. It's a continent smothered by immense ice sheets, which lock away roughly 70% of all fresh water on Earth. Temperatures there are so profoundly low that trees, fields, and permanent human societies are simply impossible. But a completely different world is preserved beneath all that ice, with evidence pointing to an astonishingly different past. This evidence tells of an Antarctica that wasn't always a polar desert, but was once a vibrant, green land. It had coastlines where waves crashed, rivers that flowed to the sea, and forests that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The proof for this green past is found in fragments, but the message they carry is undeniable. Geologists have discovered fossilized trees embedded in stone, with growth rings that chronicle their life in a much warmer era. Microscopic pollen grains, perfectly preserved in sediment, confirm that flowering plants once blanketed the continent. The fossilized bones of amphibians and reptiles point to a time when rivers and lakes offered a habitat for creatures that could never survive there today. Astonishingly, even the remains of dinosaurs have been unearthed in locations now buried by glaciers. All of this evidence converges on a single conclusion. Antarctica was not always buried under miles of ice, but has undergone an epic transformation from a lush landscape to a frozen expanse over millions of years. A major driver behind this incredible change was the process of continental drift. Antarctica did not always sit at the bottom of the world. Hundreds of millions of years ago, it was a piece of the massive supercontinent Gondwana, physically connected to lands we now know as South America, Africa, India, and Australia. In this arrangement, it was located much nearer to the equator and enjoyed a temperate climate where forests grew and life flourished. As the tectonic plates moved over eons, Antarctica began its slow journey south, eventually settling into its current polar position. However, its arrival at the South Pole didn't trigger an instant deep freeze. For many millions of years, high levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere kept the continent relatively warm. We know this because fossils of subtropical plants, including palm trees, have been found there. The cooling was a gradual process. The first significant ice sheets began to form approximately 34 million years ago as global carbon dioxide levels fell. Even then, the glaciation wasn't a one-way street. The ice advanced and receded many times, leaving large areas of the continent ice-free for long periods. In these warmer intervals, Antarctica's coastlines would have been unrecognizable, resembling the lush, green shores of modern-day New Zealand or South America. Ancient seashore sediments contain the remains of shells and marine life, pointing to thriving ecosystems where today there is only ice. The contrast with the present is stark. Try to picture it. Instead of a horizon of white, imagine dramatic cliffs plunging into open seas, with dense forests covering the land behind them. Instead of penguins huddled for warmth, picture a world filled with diverse birds, grazing herds, and perhaps even some of the first mammals. Some of the most compelling evidence has emerged recently from deep-sea drilling projects. Cores of sediment pulled from the seabed near the continent contain not just plant microfossils, but also chemical markers indicating a far warmer past. During certain periods, the continent could have supported temperate rainforests where the temperature rarely fell below freezing. This vision of a habitable Antarctica inevitably sparks speculation about lost civilizations. If the land was once warm and fertile, it's natural to wonder if early humans could have lived there. From a scientific standpoint, this is highly improbable, as Antarctica's warm periods happened long before our species even existed. The human imagination, however, isn't constrained by geological timelines. The very idea of ancient coastlines and forests is an invitation to imagine people building settlements, their traces now lost beneath the advancing ice. Even if it remains in the realm of fiction, the thought connects the sterile reality of today's Antarctica with the universal human story of adaptation and survival. Beyond these fascinating speculations, the ancient coastlines teach us a critical lesson about the fragility of climate. The complete transformation of a green, living continent into a frozen wasteland is a stark reminder that Earth is not static. For scientists, studying these ancient shores is vital for understanding our own climate crisis. The preserved sediments and fossils are a direct record of past CO2 levels and ocean conditions, showing us how the planet responds to warming and cooling. In this sense, Antarctica's green past is more than a historical curiosity, it is a profound warning. But for the storytellers and dreamers, a green Antarctica represents something more, a stage for what might have been. If harbors could exist where ships could dock and valleys could support crops, then perhaps people once walked that land. The fossil record continues to feed this narrative fire. Discoveries of beautifully preserved leaves and wood, alongside the remains of animals that needed a warm climate to survive, offer undeniable proof that Antarctica was once a fertile world, leaving us to wonder about all the stories the ice has yet to tell. Flowing from the idea of untold stories buried in the ice, we find that every new fossil helps assemble a puzzle of an Antarctica that defies its modern appearance. Each of these ancient clues makes it clearer that the narrative of this continent is far from finished. The very coastlines of that lost world are not erased forever, either. As contemporary climate change causes the ice to retreat, some of these primeval shorelines are once again seeing the sun, uncovering rocks and layers of sediment that have been in darkness for millions of years. These revelations from the deep past are simultaneously fascinating and sobering. While they offer a look at what the continent once was, they also serve as a stark reminder of what could happen again as our world is reshaped by rising temperatures. A green Antarctica may not reappear in our lifetimes, but within the vast expanse of geological time, it remains a distinct possibility. This vision of a verdant Antarctica with ancient shores is, therefore, more than just a historical footnote. It stands as a testament to the Earth's incredible capacity for transformation, showing us how profoundly it has changed and will inevitably change again. It forges a link between the frozen desert of the present and a vibrant, living past, compelling us to consider a future where the continent might be reborn. Regardless of whether we approach this through a scientific or speculative lens, the underlying truth is undeniable. Antarctica is not a static monolith. It is a dynamic, shifting world, alive in ways our science is just starting to comprehend. The coastlines of its past may be entombed beneath miles of ice, but they come alive in our minds. Waves crashing on Antarctic beaches, great forests swaying in a polar breeze, and herds of animals roaming across vast, open plains. This isn't a work of fiction. It's the world that the geological evidence proves once existed. Recognizing this reality changes everything, transforming Antarctica from a land of eternal ice into a land of eternal change. A continent with a history far richer and more complex than its frozen surface implies. The common mental image of Antarctica is one of profound emptiness, a frozen wilderness where life clings on in the form of penguins, seals, and a handful of resilient birds and microorganisms. However, locked away beneath the ice and within the coastal rocks are fossils that paint an astonishingly different picture. They reveal that this continent, now defined by its ice and quiet, once pulsed with the activity of plants and animals that would be completely alien to its current environment. Every fossil represents a beautiful contradiction, offering tangible proof that Antarctica once hosted ecosystems that are impossible to imagine just by looking at it today. This tale of a different world begins with the plants. In various locations, fossilized leaves, fragments of wood, and even whole tree trunks have been discovered, many of them so exquisitely preserved that their cellular structure is still intact. The growth rings found in some of these fossil trees tell a story not just of a warm climate, but also of adaptation to the long, dark winters characteristic of polar latitudes. This indicates that vast forests flourished even when Antarctica was already situated near the South Pole, long before the ice sheet claimed the land. Some fossils point to the existence of broadleaf deciduous trees, the type you'd see in the temperate forests of today. Others are species related to southern beeches and conifers, plants that could never endure the continent's modern, deep-freeze conditions. These discoveries are so powerful because they reframe Antarctica not as a barren wasteland, but as a continent with a long and complicated ecological past. Animals also left behind their stories in the stone. The uncovering of amphibian and reptile fossils, including ancient frogs and salamanders, confirms that rivers and lakes once supported thriving freshwater habitats. Elsewhere, the remains of massive marine reptiles like plesiosaurs have been unearthed, demonstrating that the oceans surrounding Antarctica were once home to the very same giants that dominated the seas during the age of the dinosaurs. Perhaps the most breathtaking discoveries of all are the dinosaur fossils. The skeletons of species that once wandered this lost world, from duck-billed herbivores to small carnivores, have been excavated from the frozen rock. These creatures inhabited lush forests, hunting for prey and grazing on vegetation in an environment that is simply unimaginable today. The very notion of dinosaurs in Antarctica might seem impossible, yet the fossils provide undeniable proof. During the Cretaceous period, a significant portion of the continent was free of ice, with a climate mild enough to support rich vegetation and a complex food web. Although the polar regions still faced prolonged periods of darkness, the planet was much warmer overall, and these dinosaurs evolved to suit those unique polar conditions. Some researchers theorize that these polar dinosaurs might have developed special abilities to get through the extended winters, possibly involving slowed metabolisms or unique behaviors we can only speculate about. What is certain is that they lived and thrived there, leaving behind their bones in rocks that would later be buried by advancing glaciers. Beyond the era of dinosaurs, other fossils show that Antarctica was also home to mammals. In the early Cenozoic era, after the Great Extinction event, fossil evidence indicates that marsupials and other mammal groups populated the continent when it was still physically connected to South America and Australia as part of the supercontinent Gondwana. These creatures lived in the extensive forests that covered the land, and their bones, preserved in ancient sediments, give us a glimpse into a long-forgotten age. For a time, Antarctica was not merely habitable. It was a flourishing crossroads for life, a place where species could migrate freely across Gondwana before the continents drifted apart. The fossils also provide us with finer details about this lost world. Microscopic pollen grains and spores, trapped within layers of sediment, chart the progression of the climate over millions of years, showing how lush forests slowly gave way to tundra, and how that tundra was eventually swallowed by ice. These tiny fossils are just as crucial as the large bones and leaves because they document the gradual nature of the change. They tell us that Antarctica's transformation was not a sudden event but a slow process, with ecosystems gradually collapsing as the glaciers advanced. By analyzing these minuscule remains, scientists can reconstruct entire ancient landscapes, complete with their specific plants, insects, and even weather patterns. Some fossils even point to ecosystems we wouldn't expect in a polar region. Traces of freshwater mussels, fish, and other aquatic life have been found, signaling the past existence of the many rivers and lakes that once dotted the continent. Try to picture yourself standing on Antarctica millions of years ago, not on a sheet of ice, but on a riverbank shaded by towering trees, listening to the sounds of frogs and the splash of fish in the water. The fossils are what make this vision real. They prove that Antarctica was once a place of sound and motion, not just one of wind and silence. This abundance of life preserved in Antarctica's rock is of huge scientific importance, but it also ignites the imagination. If complex plants and animals could thrive there for millions of years, what else might have been possible? Is it conceivable that early humans or their ancestors could have reached the continent during one of its warmer periods? Could a distant memory of its green forests have been passed down through generations, eventually becoming the ancient myths of a lost southern land? Scientifically, the timeline doesn't support humans overlapping with these ancient warm climates. But our imagination is not so constrained. When we learn about dinosaurs in Antarctica or forests at the South Pole, it's natural to wonder if more recent, undocumented life could have also called it home. Even within mainstream science, these fossils raise critical questions about climate change. They demonstrate that Earth's climate has undergone radical shifts in the past, with Antarctica swinging between the extremes of a lush paradise and a frozen desert. They are a powerful reminder that our planet's climate is not a fixed system, but a dynamic one, influenced by everything from greenhouse gases to the position of the continents and the flow of ocean currents. In this way, the fossils serve as a warning. If Antarctica was once green and teeming with life, it could certainly change again. In fact, due to modern global warming, some ice-free areas are already expanding, exposing ground that has been hidden from the sun for eons. In these newly revealed rocks, scientists are finding even more fossils, adding fresh pieces to the intricate puzzle of Antarctica's long-lost ecosystems. Some of the most incredible finds have been fossilized tree stumps discovered in their original positions, still rooted in the ancient soil where they once grew. These are not just scattered fragments that washed in from somewhere else. They are the remnants of entire forests preserved in stone, providing irrefutable evidence that Antarctica once supported thriving woodlands. The sight of fossilized tree rings, perfectly preserved in a land now completely devoid of trees, is one of an unforgettable testament to how drastically our world can be remade. These stumps stand like monuments, silent witnesses to a time when the land we now associate with lifeless ice was instead a place of vibrant growth. Creatures that seem completely out of place are perhaps the most haunting fossil discoveries. Penguins much larger than any modern species once waddled along Antarctica's shores, with some standing taller than a person. Fossils of other giant birds hint at rich ecosystems capable of sustaining such large animals. Marine life found in sediment layers shows that the oceans around the continent were once warm and incredibly diverse. Even today, fossils of ancient whales and seals are sometimes found, showing that these familiar species have a very long history in these southern waters. Every new find contributes another layer to the portrait of a continent that has undergone countless transformations, with each epoch leaving behind fragmented memories preserved in stone. And speculation naturally grows from these fragments. If giant penguins once walked on Antarctica's beaches and dinosaurs roamed its forests, then why is it so hard to imagine that civilizations could have risen during later, undocumented warm periods? The fossil record doesn't prove it, but it also can't completely disprove it, especially when we remember just how much of the continent is still waiting to be explored. This tantalizing prospect of what might be hidden beneath the glaciers inevitably leads to one of the most persistent and debated questions about Antarctica. Could humans have possibly reached its shores before the modern era of exploration? At first glance, the notion seems preposterous. The continent is famously remote, hostile to life, and entombed by a colossal ice sheet. Official records mark its discovery in the early 19th century. Yet, despite this established history, a captivating debate about much earlier visits continues to simmer, fueled by the possibility that ancient mariners saw the continent when it looked quite different, or that forgotten knowledge of it has survived in cryptic maps and myths. The idea of human footprints on Antarctica, whether real or symbolic, represents one of the most compelling aspects of its enduring mystery. The mainstream scientific perspective is firm. Antarctica, as we know it today, has been locked in its icy state for millions of years. It was already a frozen, desolate landmass by the time modern humans evolved, making it practically unreachable with the technology of ancient times. Early seafarers struggled just to navigate the open oceans, let alone survive a journey to the far south through some of the most violent seas on Earth. From this standpoint, any suggestion of early visitors appears highly improbable. However, the conversation refuses to fade away, kept alive by a collection of intriguing anomalies, persistent legends, and curious artifacts that provide just enough room for speculation. Ancient cartography, for instance, offers a compelling piece of the puzzle. Maps like the one created by Piri Reis in 1513 are frequently cited. As some researchers claim, it depicts Antarctica's coastline before it was officially discovered. Leaving that specific map aside, the general fact that some ancient and medieval maps contain surprisingly precise geographical information hints that knowledge might have been passed down from sources now lost to history. Could fragments of observations from early explorers who reached Antarctic waters during a warmer age have been preserved, influencing cartographers centuries later? While purely speculative, this question continues to fascinate because it is so incredibly difficult to either prove or disprove. Legends from ancient cultures also add fuel to the fire. Stories of lands far to the south, existing beyond the known world, appear in diverse traditions. The ancient Greeks theorized about a Terra Australis, a southern landmass required to bring balance to the globe. The oral histories of Polynesian navigators describe epic voyages across the Pacific, occasionally alluding to colder waters far from their typical routes. Likewise, some South American myths speak of frozen kingdoms or lands veiled in snow. While none of these stories serve as direct proof of contact with Antarctica, they do open the door to the possibility that early peoples either glimpsed or imagined far southern lands long before their modern confirmation. Myths are known for exaggeration, but they are also powerful vehicles for preserving memory. If humans ever did see Antarctica's coast during a brief ice-free window, is it possible that an echo of that encounter survived in folklore? The argument is further bolstered by the constantly evolving understanding of our own history. Time and again, archaeologists have unearthed evidence showing that ancient humans traveled farther and achieved more than was once believed. Discoveries in the Americas have dramatically pushed back the timeline for human arrival. Highly sophisticated artifacts are now found in locations where older theories insisted only primitive tools should be. We now recognize that ancient seafaring was far more advanced than previously assumed, with people crossing vast oceans thousands of years earlier than our textbooks once claimed. If our core assumptions about the past can be so radically altered, some argue, then why not also consider the possibility that humans reached Antarctica far earlier than we currently think? Then there is the climate itself to consider. Fossils have proven that Antarctica was once a warm and livable continent, blanketed in lush forests and teeming with animal life. Although these periods largely predate humanity's existence, there were still transitional phases when portions of the continent might have been more accessible, with less ice coverage and more exposed coastlines. Could early humans, or even our pre-human ancestors like Homo erectus, have explored those shores? If small groups of hominids could successfully spread across Asia, Europe, and eventually the Americas, is it out of the question that they ventured farther south than we've given them credit for? The scientific consensus remains a firm no. But here again, the evidence is incomplete. With the vast majority of Antarctica buried under miles of ice, we cannot definitively rule out every possibility without being able to excavate. Puzzling features within the ice also feed the speculation. Satellite imagery occasionally reveals patterns that appear geometric, sparking theories about ruins buried deep beneath the glaciers. While geology can explain most of these shapes as natural formations, the continent's immense size and remoteness mean that a thorough investigation of all of them has never been conducted. Similarly, unusual magnetic readings detected in certain regions contribute to the mystery. Scientists typically attribute these to variations in the bedrock, but others have interpreted them as potential signs of artificial structures or artifacts. If any such discovery were ever confirmed, it would completely reshape our understanding of human history. Until that day, these remain tantalizing questions suspended in the frigid air. The debate is also sustained by narratives of restricted access. Specific Antarctic zones are off-limits for legitimate environmental or logistical reasons, but this has led some to interpret the restrictions as an effort to deliberately conceal secrets. Though there is no scientific basis for these claims, the combination of a mysterious continent, forbidden zones, and a lack of first-hand evidence keeps the idea of a cover-up alive. It raises the provocative question: if traces of an ancient human presence were found, would we even be told? That undercurrent of suspicion fuels endless speculation. Beyond the fragments of potential evidence, the sheer allure of this idea is undeniably powerful. The thought of an ancient human presence in Antarctica connects us to a grander narrative, suggesting our collective story extends farther than we ever realized. It taps into a universal fascination with lost civilizations and forgotten eras, much like the myth of Atlantis captivates us with its tale of a sophisticated culture swallowed by the sea. The idea of early Antarctic explorers is so appealing because it suggests we are not the first to confront the mysteries of this frozen land. Of course, there is a strong counterargument from the skeptical perspective. Critics rightfully caution against overinterpreting anomalies and emphasize that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. To date, none has been found. The fossils discovered are of plants and animals, not humans. There is a complete absence of artifacts left by any early visitors. The logistical hurdles of reaching Antarctica with primitive technology were simply immense. From this viewpoint, the lack of proof is itself significant. If humans had been there, it is reasonable to expect that at least some trace would have survived. So far, nothing has ever emerged. The debate, skeptics argue, is a product of human imagination rather than a reflection of human history. Yet, imagination is a vital part of this story. People dream of ancient footprints in the snow not because they expect to find them tomorrow, but because the mere possibility infuses Antarctica with an additional layer of significance. It transforms the continent from a frozen wasteland into a potential stage where human history may have unfolded in ways we have yet to comprehend. That dream, even if it remains unproven, is what keeps our curiosity burning, and curiosity is the engine of discovery. Ultimately, whether or not humans ever walked on Antarctica in ancient times, the fact that we can't stop asking the question reveals just how powerfully we are all drawn to a great mystery. The world we inhabit is anything but permanent. Our planet is in constant flux, continents drift, climates transform, ice sheets advance and retreat, and even the poles themselves wander over time. We often imagine civilization as being anchored to a fixed geography, built along rivers or on fertile coastlines. But what if the ground itself isn't stable? Could shifts in the Earth's axis, or a rearrangement of land and sea, force entire cultures to move, adapt, or vanish entirely? This question has captivated researchers and storytellers for generations, and it's a key reason Antarctica fuels so much speculation. If the geographic poles haven't always occupied their current positions, is it possible a civilization once prospered in a place that has since become a frozen wasteland? Does human history contain lost chapters where societies were pushed southward, only to be completely erased by the planet's own movements? This concept of shifting poles isn't just wild imagination, it has a basis in science. The Earth's axis is known to wobble throughout its history in a phenomenon called axial precession, which adjusts the planet's orientation to the stars over a 26,000-year cycle. Beyond that, there are also true polar wander events, where the planet's outer crust shifts relative to its rotational axis, moving continents closer to or further from the poles. While these processes unfold over vast geological timescales, they are a powerful reminder that continental locations and their climates are never set in stone. Antarctica itself is a prime example. It wasn't always imprisoned at the South Pole. Millions of years ago, it was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, situated in warmer, temperate latitudes, and it experienced balmy periods even after drifting south, before the ice sheet claimed it. Speculators are fascinated by how these planetary shifts might have intersected with human or even pre-human civilizations. If the Earth's axis tilted differently, global climates would be radically transformed. Fertile lands could become barren deserts, while temperate regions could be plunged into a deep freeze. Any culture established there would face a stark choice: adapt or perish, with their history fading into myth. Could Antarctica have been one of these forgotten lands? A place where a society flourished only to be entombed by ice when the planet's orientation changed. Some theories suggest the end of the last great ice age, around 12,000 years ago, could have triggered a more sudden rebalancing of the Earth's crust. The hypothesis is that immense weight from polar ice caused a redistribution of mass, altering the planet's orientation. While mainstream science doesn't endorse catastrophic pole shifts occurring so quickly, smaller, gradual shifts are widely accepted. These changes alone could have been significant enough to alter climates across the globe, and proponents of alternative history believe that within this window, entire civilizations may have been displaced. This idea gains traction when you consider the countless myths from cultures worldwide that tell of cataclysmic floods, frozen lands, and lost homelands. The Great Flood story in the Bible, the epics of ancient Sumer, and similar tales from indigenous traditions all seem to echo a memory of sudden, devastating change. While many interpret these as accounts of rising sea levels after the Ice Age, others see a link to pole shifts. They argue a movement of the Earth's axis could have transformed climates and uprooted populations. If so, Antarctica would be the perfect candidate for a homeland tragically lost to ice. Then there are the strange, unexplained anomalies. Some researchers point to magnetic readings from Antarctica that don't match what geological models predict. Others highlight satellite imagery that seems to reveal geometric shapes hidden beneath the ice. Conventional explanations attribute these to natural formations, but those open to speculation see tantalizing hints of a civilization wiped out when the poles shifted and the continent froze over. The enduring mystery of Atlantis also fits neatly into this framework. Plato described a great civilization that disappeared in a single day and night, destroyed by earthquakes and floods. Though he placed it beyond the Pillars of Hercules, later theorists have relocated Atlantis all over the world, with some connecting it directly to Antarctica. They suggest a pole shift moved the once temperate nation to its current position at the South Pole, burying it under ice. In this retelling, the myth of Atlantis becomes more than a fable. It's a fragmented memory of a real, advanced society victimized by planetary upheaval, merging geology with human drama. From a scientific standpoint, there is no direct evidence to support such a civilization. Antarctica's fossil record from its warmer past reveals plants and animals, but no humans. Global archaeology traces humanity's development through Africa, Europe, and Asia, with no clear signs of an Antarctic origin. However, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The monumental challenge of exploring Antarctica means vast swathes of its history remain unknown. Until we can routinely drill through miles of ice or map subglacial valleys, the possibility of a lost chapter of human history will remain open, at least in our imagination. What is undeniable is that shifting poles and changing climates have rewritten human history time and again. The end of the last ice age fundamentally reshaped our world, submerging land bridges and forcing massive migrations. Cultures on fertile plains were displaced by deserts, while rising seas isolated communities. Even without a lost civilization, we know humanity has been profoundly shaped by the Earth's changing balance. It's not such a great leap to wonder if some shifts were so extreme they completely erased societies, leaving Antarctica as the most compelling candidate for such a lost world. This theory also has deep psychological appeal because it confronts our belief in permanence. We think of continents and climates as static, but they are not. Mountains rise and erode, oceans advance, and the poles drift. Our civilizations are built on foundations we assume are stable, but the planet itself is in constant motion. To imagine an Antarctic culture displaced by a shifting pole is to acknowledge our own vulnerability to forces beyond our control. It's a humbling and unsettling reminder that the ground beneath our feet is never truly solid. Taking the speculation even further, some have proposed that myths about gods descending from the heavens could be distorted memories of survivors from just such a cataclysm. If an advanced civilization once thrived in Antarctica and was forced to flee as the ice advanced, its people might have carried their knowledge to other parts of the world. To the less advanced societies they encountered, they could have appeared as extraordinary, godlike beings. There is no proof, but the idea neatly ties together disparate global myths into a single event, offering a potential explanation for ancient mysteries. As the timeline stretches back thousands of years, it is easy to feel small against the vastness of history. If you are enjoying this journey through time so far, comment the word ancient so I know you're still with me. While some mysteries lead us to reinterpret maps and myths, others guide us to one of the most incredible historical archives on the planet. We typically imagine history being stored in libraries, on ancient scrolls, or within the ruins of forgotten cities. Yet, a far more extensive record exists, not on shelves, but locked deep inside the Antarctic ice sheet. This immense frozen landscape preserves an astonishingly detailed diary of Earth, written over hundreds of thousands of years. With every snowfall, a new page was added, compressing over time into a solid layer of ice. This is a book written not with ink, but with the very air, dust, and chemicals of its time. When scientists drill and extract long cylinders of this ice, known as ice cores, they are pulling out a timeline of our planet's climate and atmosphere, one more precise than any other we have. The Earth's memory is held there, frozen and waiting for us to read its story. The principle behind this natural archive is as elegant as it is powerful. In Antarctica, the vast majority of snow that falls each year never melts. Instead, it is slowly buried and compacted by the weight of subsequent layers. After thousands of years, this immense pressure transforms the snow into solid ice. Crucially, as this process unfolds, tiny bubbles of the atmosphere at that time are trapped and sealed within the ice. These bubbles are perfect, miniature samples of ancient air, containing direct evidence of carbon dioxide, methane, and other gases. Furthermore, embedded dust particles can tell of distant volcanic eruptions, powerful desert winds, or even the fallout from asteroid impacts. The temperatures of bygone eras are revealed through chemical isotopes left in the snow when it first landed. Year after year, layer upon layer, these frozen chronicles accumulate to form an unbroken historical record. So, when a drill bores deep into the sheet and pulls out a core, researchers are quite literally unrolling the history of our world. Some of these ice cores stretch back an incredible distance in time, nearly 1 million years. At Antarctic sites like Dome C and Vostok, drilling projects have uncovered climate cycles that span multiple ice ages. These frozen records clearly show the planet's recurring patterns of warming and cooling, alongside the corresponding rise and fall of greenhouse gas levels. They detail the dramatic environmental shifts that have shaped the evolution of entire ecosystems and, eventually, our own human societies. It's a staggering thought that by holding a cylinder of ancient ice, a scientist can analyze the very air that mammoths once breathed, or that filled the skies long before the first humans existed. This isn't history that has been guessed or inferred, it has been physically preserved. It's a form of time travel, made possible by nothing more than the patient accumulation of falling snow. The primary narrative told by these ice cores is one of immense, repeating cycles. The data reveals time and again how ice ages have advanced and retreated, almost in rhythm with subtle changes in Earth's orbit and tilt around the Sun. This rhythm is amplified by greenhouse gases, which rise and fall in perfect tandem with the planet's temperature swings. During warm interglacial periods, carbon dioxide levels climb, glaciers melt, and the seas rise. In the cold glacial periods, these gas levels plummet, ice sheets expand, and deserts spread across the continents. These natural cycles, written so clearly in the ice, serve as a powerful reminder that our climate is never static. The world we inherited was already forged by these long, ancient patterns of change. However, the ice cores also reveal something entirely new. In the most recent layers, corresponding to the last few centuries, greenhouse gas levels have skyrocketed far beyond anything seen in the ancient record. This spike is not driven by natural cycles. The ice makes it unmistakable that human activity is the cause. This is a huge part of why these cores are so invaluable. They don't just tell us about the distant past, they give us the essential context to understand our present. When we compare today's atmosphere to the ones frozen in time, we can truly grasp how extraordinary our impact on the planet has been. The sharp increase in carbon dioxide since the Industrial Revolution stands out like a distress flare, a signal unlike anything found in nearly 1,000,000 years of natural cycles. The ice quietly and certainly tells us that what is happening right now is a disruption without precedent in the preserved memory of our world. Beyond these grand climate cycles, the ice cores also chronicle unexpected, sudden events. Layers containing volcanic ash correspond to massive eruptions, some so large they altered global weather patterns for years. Abrupt spikes in certain isotopes can point to periods of intense cosmic ray bombardment or unusual solar activity. Researchers have even discovered traces of meteoritic material, marking the moments that ancient objects from space impacted our planet. These fine details demonstrate that Earth's history is not just a slow, predictable rhythm, but is also punctuated by sudden shocks, events that could alter conditions practically overnight. To read these signatures is to glimpse the immense drama of the planet, preserved for millennia in the simplest of things: frozen water falling from the sky year after year. This incredible preservative power of the ice naturally sparks more tantalizing questions. If the ice can so perfectly store air, dust, and ash, what other, more unusual things might it hold? Some have imagined that, miles beneath the surface, traces of a lost ancient civilization could be sealed away in layers we have yet to reach. Physical artifacts are highly unlikely, since the cores primarily capture atmospheric samples, but the imagination stretches further. Could fainter signals of a human presence, one far older than we currently accept, be locked away in those tiny air bubbles, just waiting to be detected? If civilizations did rise and fall in deep prehistory, might faint traces of their atmospheric impact, their fires, their industry, have survived in the ice. While mainstream science has found no such evidence, the question lingers because the cores are so remarkably complete in every other way. They hold the memory of the planet's forests, deserts, volcanoes, and oceans. So the thinking goes, why wouldn't they also hold the memory of people if they were there to be remembered? Some alternative researchers propose that strange anomalies in the core data, unexplained spikes or sudden shifts, could be more than just natural events. They see within these patterns the possible ghost signatures of lost histories, moments when ancient peoples might have influenced the planet long before recorded time. Scientists effectively counter that these anomalies are well explained by natural processes, from volcanic winters to solar cycles. But as long as the vast majority of the ice remains unread, there is room for speculation to grow. The image of the Antarctic ice as a library is powerful because it reminds us that memory can exist in many forms. Human memory is fragile, often fading within a single generation. Written memory can last for centuries or even millennia if carefully protected. But the memory stored in the ice stretches back almost 1 million years, an unbroken and silent saga holding stories that no human ever witnessed. When we read it, we step outside the narrow window of our own history and see our species against the vast backdrop of geological time. It is a perspective that is humbling, unsettling, and inspiring all at once. This archive also highlights just how much is still unknown. The oldest cores currently reach back about 800,000 years, but scientists believe that deeper drilling could push that timeline back even further, perhaps capturing records from over 1.5 million years ago. Every new core that is successfully drilled is like discovering a new volume in a grand historical series, adding critical context and filling in missing details. The scientific community continues to push for deeper, cleaner, and more precise drilling projects, because each meter of ice pulled to the surface is another recovered page from Earth's diary. The process of retrieving this history is a dramatic story in itself. Picture a team of scientists in the middle of Antarctica, surrounded by an endless expanse of ice and sky, carefully lowering equipment 2 miles deep into the frozen crust. For weeks or months at a time, they endure some of the harshest conditions on the planet to retrieve a delicate cylinder of ice only a few inches across. Yet inside that fragile cylinder lies a physical record of tens of thousands of years. It is both priceless and precarious, a sliver of history that could melt away in an instant if not meticulously preserved. The sheer dedication required to collect and study these cores underscores just how valuable they are, and how much we depend on them to understand the only planet we have. While the ice cores tell us a story written in frozen water, other methods of studying Antarctica reveal a story that is far less clear, a story told in whispers and shadows. When scientists first set out to map the continent, they were prepared for the obvious challenges of brutal cold, blinding ice, and enormous distances. What they were not prepared for were the strange and perplexing readings coming from their instruments. As magnetic and radar surveys began to paint a picture of the land hidden beneath the ice, they uncovered patterns that defied easy explanation. These were magnetic anomalies, regions where the Earth's magnetic field acted erratically. While some could be chalked up to simple variations in geology, like the density or type of rock, others remained stubbornly mysterious. These were not just quirks in the data. They were invisible features, detected only by sensors, hinting that the world buried under the ice was unlike anywhere else on Earth. It is precisely in these places, where scientific data meets a blank space on the map, that our curiosity and imagination begin to run wild. Normally, our planet's magnetic field is quite predictable. Generated by the flow of molten iron deep within the Earth's core, it behaves in a way we can generally model and understand. Local distortions are common and can usually be traced back to specific geological features. For example, a large underground deposit of iron-rich ore will create a stronger magnetic field, while a deep fault line in the crust can warp it. But some of the anomalies in Antarctica don't fit these simple explanations. Survey planes flying over certain areas have recorded magnetic disturbances so powerful they suggest the presence of massive, buried structures that don't seem to match the surrounding geology. The most famous of these is located deep in East Antarctica, in an area known as Wilkes Land. Here, satellite data has pinpointed a colossal circular anomaly stretching over 150 miles across. Many scientists believe this could be the scar left by a gigantic asteroid that slammed into our planet millions of years ago. If this theory is correct, the impact would have been on the scale of the Chicxulub crater in Mexico, which has been linked to the extinction of the dinosaurs. An event of that magnitude in Antarctica would have undoubtedly triggered devastating global climate shifts, and may have even played a role in kicking off past ice ages. However, with miles of ice covering the site, getting direct confirmation is an incredible challenge. For others, the anomaly's nearly perfect circular shape is too tantalizing to ignore, sparking speculation of a more artificial origin. Could it be the ruins of a buried city, or a massive structure left behind by a long-lost civilization, or perhaps even something not of this world? While mainstream science does not endorse these ideas, the absence of a definitive answer allows these extraordinary theories to persist. Beyond Wilkes Land, other strange patterns emerge from the data. Radar scans have revealed subglacial landscapes with unusually symmetrical features, including shapes resembling triangles and perfectly straight lines. Of course, natural geology is capable of creating all sorts of odd formations. Yet, the human mind is hardwired to find order in chaos, to see patterns where none might exist. Consequently, images showing these anomalies often circulate online, where they are interpreted as buried pyramids, ancient fortresses, or other man-made structures. Though most are eventually explained as ridges, mountains, or unique ice formations, their inaccessibility and ambiguity make them powerful symbols of the unknown. Magnetic anomalies also bring up questions about the continent's dynamic past. Some researchers suggest a link to geothermal activity, pointing out that volcanic hotspots and rifts can generate unusual magnetic signatures. We now know that Antarctica has far more volcanoes than previously thought, with many of them still active beneath the ice. The magnetic minerals in volcanic rock can differ greatly from the surrounding crust, which could certainly explain some of the readings. Still, the immense scale and distinct shape of certain anomalies lead some to believe that another explanation is needed. The puzzle only deepens when you remember Antarctica's journey across the globe over geological time. What is now buried might have once been a temperate land, fully exposed and possibly even inhabited. If these anomalies are ancient craters, they speak of cosmic collisions that reshaped life on Earth. If they mark volcanic zones, they reveal a hidden world of fire burning beneath a continent of ice. And if, as speculators suggest, they mark artificial structures, they point to an entirely different version of history, one where intelligent life left its mark in the last place anyone would think to look. For those drawn to great mysteries, this magnetic puzzle is irresistible. Unlike fossils or ice cores, which are tangible objects, anomalies exist only as points of data, numbers on a screen, and images from a satellite. This abstract nature leaves them wide open to interpretation. A scientist might look at the data and see a dense mass of igneous rock, while a storyteller might see the faint outline of a forgotten city. Both are starting with the same evidence, but their conclusions are shaped by the lens through which they view it. This inherent ambiguity is a huge part of why Antarctica's anomalies capture so much public attention. They are real, they are measurable, but they are not yet fully understood. Some have even tried to connect these magnetic disturbances to myths of lost civilizations, wondering if advanced technologies left behind could be what is interfering with modern instruments. There is no hard evidence to support this, but the question lingers simply because the data is so strange. In recent years, the study of these anomalies has gained a new sense of urgency due to its potential connection to climate change. The geothermal heat sources that may be responsible for some anomalies could also be contributing to the melting of the ice from below. If these magnetic hotspots mark areas of intense volcanic or tectonic activity, understanding them becomes crucial for predicting the future of Antarctica's ice sheets and the subsequent rise in global sea levels. It's important to remember that Antarctica is not the only place on Earth with magnetic puzzles. Similar anomalies have been found everywhere from Canada's Hudson Bay to the plains of Siberia, and they are often tied to ancient asteroid impacts or shifts in the Earth's crust. But the Antarctic anomalies are different. They are set apart by the immense, impenetrable sheet of ice that conceals them, turning what might otherwise be ordinary geological quirks into profound and enduring enigmas. We can measure them, but we cannot see them. This simple fact is what keeps the mystery alive, fueling stories of immense walls and tunnels detected by radar, and of restricted zones where fantastic discoveries are kept secret. While most of these claims are unverified, they thrive in the information vacuum created by Antarctica's remoteness. The truth, whatever it may be, is literally buried. Decades after its discovery, even a feature as significant as the Wilkes Land anomaly remains a subject of debate within the scientific community. Is it a crater, a unique geological formation, or something else entirely? Each new survey adds more data, but the puzzle is far from solved. These anomalies are more than just scientific curiosities. They are a humbling reminder that even in our modern age of satellites and global mapping, our planet still holds its secrets close. This leads us to one of the most tantalizing aspects of the Antarctic enigma. The continent isn't just physically inaccessible, it's also legally restricted. The popular perception of Antarctica is of an untouched, wide-open frontier, a vast expanse of ice and snow where, hypothetically, anyone tough enough to brave the cold could explore. The truth, however, is far more complex. A web of international agreements governs the continent, making it one of the most regulated and restricted territories on the globe. Entire regions are designated as off-limits, access is tightly managed, and research is confined to specific zones. The reasons given for these prohibitions are often environmental protection, but sometimes the full details remain unexplained. For many, these rules are perfectly logical. Antarctica's environment is incredibly delicate, and human presence could cause irreversible harm. Yet for others, these very limitations spark questions and feed speculation. In a place so profoundly empty, why are there so many rules? What could possibly be the reason people can't venture wherever they wish? Could there be more to these restrictions than just preserving the environment? The foundation for this control is the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed back in 1959 and remains in effect. This agreement formally dedicates the entire continent to peaceful and scientific pursuits. It expressly forbids any military activities, mineral mining, and nuclear testing, while simultaneously promoting international scientific collaboration. In principle, it stands as one of history's most ambitious and idealistic treaties, effectively creating a continental reserve for the good of all humankind. But a key part of the treaty involves imposing strict controls over who can go there. Only authorized scientific teams and meticulously managed tourist groups are permitted. Vast areas are kept closed off, labeled as protected zones where any human footprint is forbidden. These areas often include wildlife sanctuaries, critical nesting grounds, and unique ecological systems that could be thrown into chaos by even the slightest human interference. From a scientific standpoint, this makes complete sense. The ecosystems in Antarctica are incredibly fragile, having adapted to extreme conditions in ways that leave them highly susceptible to disruption. The accidental introduction of even a single foreign microbe could permanently alter environments that have been sealed off from the world for millions of years. This concern is particularly acute for the subglacial lakes, where the constant threat of contamination during drilling is a major issue. By restricting access, scientists aim to preserve these pristine settings for future study, ensuring they don't destroy the very thing that makes them so valuable. In this context, the restrictions are a matter of conservation, not conspiracy. Even so, the simple fact that forbidden zones exist is enough to arouse suspicion. When the public learns that huge swaths of Antarctica are closed to outsiders, it's natural to wonder what might be concealed there. Speculation arises that governments are aware of more than they officially disclose, perhaps ancient ruins, bizarre structures, or other unexplained phenomena hidden deep beneath the ice, and that the rules are a means to prevent their discovery. This narrative is only strengthened by satellite images that occasionally show blurred-out sections or strange anomalies. While the vast majority of these are simply the result of data processing errors or cloud cover, they nonetheless feed into a larger sense of mystery. Beyond any conspiracy, however, there are intensely practical reasons for the restrictions. Antarctica is an incredibly dangerous place. The weather can shift in an instant, with winds powerful enough to obliterate encampments and temperatures so low they can be fatal to an unprepared person in minutes. Deep crevasses, hidden by a thin layer of snow, act as invisible traps capable of swallowing people and vehicles whole. Many off-limits areas are designated as such not because they hide secrets, but because they are far too hazardous to allow anyone to enter. Under these conditions, a rescue mission is often impossible, and permitting open access would inevitably lead to tragedy. From this perspective, forbidden is less about concealment and more about safety. Still, history has shown that official restrictions can sometimes serve to hide more than just physical dangers. During the Cold War, Antarctica was a quiet arena for the rivalry between global superpowers. Despite the treaty's ban on military activity, both the United States and the Soviet Union operated bases that fueled suspicion. It's widely believed that clandestine research projects were carried out there under the banner of science. Facilities like nuclear-powered stations and advanced radar installations were often surrounded by secrecy. Even in the modern era, some research initiatives lack full transparency, with their ultimate objectives remaining unclear to the public. This lack of complete openness naturally creates a breeding ground for theories about what's really happening in the continent's most remote corners. Stories often circulate about peculiar discoveries and strange encounters. Some accounts allege that expeditions stumbled upon highly unusual formations under the ice, only to have those areas swiftly declared off-limits. Others speak of scientists who witnessed things they couldn't explain and upon returning home refused to discuss their experiences. These tales are typically second-hand, distorted by layers of rumor and exaggeration. But in a place so profoundly isolated, where direct knowledge is held by so few, these kinds of stories flourish, nurturing the belief that Antarctica holds secrets that science is not ready to admit. One of the most enduring ideas revolves around radar scans that have supposedly detected mountains or other structures shaped like pyramids or artificial constructs. While geologists have a straightforward explanation for these, they are natural formations known as nunataks, which are mountain peaks that protrude through the ice sheet. Others interpret them as definitive proof of a lost civilization. When the areas surrounding these formations are restricted, speculation only grows. Skeptics naturally ask why open investigation isn't allowed, unless there is something to conceal. The scientific community responds by explaining that the restrictions are in place to protect fragile geology, but a sense of suspicion often remains because the shapes themselves are so evocative. There is also a persistent fascination with rumors of secret underground bases. Some theories suggest that governments or other shadowy organizations constructed hidden facilities deep beneath the ice sheet during the mid-20th century. Legends about Nazi expeditions to Antarctica in the 1930s, followed by claims of secret installations built in the following decades, have become a cornerstone of the continent's modern mythology. While historical documents do confirm German exploratory missions, no credible evidence of any permanent bases has ever been found. Nevertheless, the idea endures, bolstered by the sheer difficulty of confirming what does or does not lie buried under miles of solid ice. And when specific regions are officially closed off, the connection appears self-evident to those inclined to believe. Even for those who dismiss such dramatic theories, there remains a palpable sense that Antarctica is one of the planet's least accessible places by deliberate design. It stands in stark contrast to most of the world, where commerce, tourism, and exploration are commonplace. Antarctica actively resists this kind of intrusion. Strict regulations are in place, permits are mandatory, and enforcement is robust, giving the continent an atmosphere of exclusivity. Its wonders are accessible only to a select group of scientists, specialists, and a small number of tourists. For everyone else, Antarctica is experienced from a distance, through carefully curated reports and managed imagery. That separation alone makes it feel like a forbidden land. At the same time, these very restrictions have produced an invaluable scientific benefit. Thanks to its protected status, Antarctica remains one of the last truly pristine environments on Earth. It has minimal pollution compared to other continents, and it is home to species that exist nowhere else. The ice preserves ancient cores and fossils in a way that would be impossible in any other location. In that respect, the forbidden nature of Antarctica is a gift to humanity. By keeping it largely off-limits, we have successfully preserved a unique natural laboratory where the planet's past and future can be studied with almost no interference. And yet, human imagination will always be drawn to forbidden places as sources of mystery. Whenever explorers are told a place is off-limits, they can't help but wonder what they might discover if they broke the rules. This very human instinct, to assume something remarkable is being hidden, is what gives forbidden places their power. When official expeditions become shrouded in secrecy, our imagination races to fill in the blanks, conjuring up discoveries so paradigm-shifting they must be concealed. With its enormous hidden territories and strictly controlled access, Antarctica serves as the ultimate stage for these kinds of theories. Its restricted zones become potent symbols of all we are not permitted to know, acting as a stark reminder that even today, huge swaths of our own planet are essentially unreachable. From a scientific standpoint, these restrictions are a matter of practicality. For the dreamers among us, they are a tantalizing hint of something more. The continent's identity is shaped by the coexistence of these two perspectives, presenting it as both a crucial scientific laboratory and a boundless realm of fantasy. This duality is perfectly captured by its forbidden zones, which simultaneously protect incredibly delicate ecosystems, while fueling the profound feeling that just beneath the ice, monumental secrets are waiting to be found. And the enduring fascination is guaranteed by the simple fact that we cannot see whether these secrets are geological marvels, ancient life, or something else entirely. Among all the legends from antiquity, the story of Atlantis possesses a unique power to fascinate us. Over 2 millennia ago, the philosopher Plato first told of Atlantis, an advanced society that disappeared beneath the waves in a single, catastrophic day and night. In the generations that have followed, endless searches have been mounted, countless theories have been proposed, and the tale has been continuously reimagined to fit the spirit of the times. Many view Atlantis as a work of pure fiction, a parable crafted by Plato to illustrate a philosophical argument. Yet for others, it represents a fragmented truth, a garbled collective memory of a real place that history has forgotten. Out of all the proposed locations for this lost land, Antarctica emerges as one of the most intriguing possibilities. A number of key arguments form the foundation for linking the lost city with the frozen continent. The first is the central concept of a sophisticated culture that was completely erased by a natural cataclysm. We now understand that Antarctica was not always a land of ice. Evidence from fossils and geological surveys shows it once enjoyed a green, temperate, and at times even subtropical climate. If a civilization had blossomed there during one of these milder eras, the relentless advance of the ice sheets could have obliterated it, leaving behind no obvious evidence of its existence. In this way, Antarctica aligns perfectly with the primary theme of the Atlantis legend, a prosperous land that was suddenly and violently concealed from the rest of the world. The second argument revolves around the ambiguity of its geography. Plato situated Atlantis somewhere beyond the Pillars of Hercules, an area most scholars identify as the Strait of Gibraltar. Beyond that clue, his description is open-ended enough to support a wide range of interpretations. Theorists have placed it everywhere from the Atlantic and the Mediterranean to the Caribbean and Southeast Asia. Antarctica joins this debate largely because of artifacts like the Piri Reis map, which some proponents believe accurately depicts the continent's coastline long before its formal discovery in the 19th century. If such detailed knowledge of Antarctica did persist into the early modern era, it raises the possibility that much older civilizations were also aware of it. And if they were aware of it, it's conceivable they even lived there. This notion found new support during the 20th century through the rising popularity of theories about catastrophic polar shifts. According to one interpretation, the Earth's crust might have undergone a sudden and massive displacement in the distant past, sliding entire continents into new positions. Were this to be true, Antarctica could have once been located much closer to the equator, in a climate that could easily sustain a highly developed society. From this perspective, the legend of Atlantis is transformed from an allegory into a genuine memory. It becomes the story of a culture that thrived on the landmass we now call Antarctica, only to be destroyed when the planet's poles shifted and a new ice age consumed their home. Conventional historians, however, reject these ideas as pure conjecture, citing the complete absence of any hard archaeological proof for an advanced society on the continent. The fossil record clearly shows a history of plants, animals, and even dinosaurs, but it contains no trace of humans or their activities. By the time our species evolved, Antarctica was already locked in ice. For believers in the Atlantis Connection, this lack of evidence is not a deal-breaker. They maintain that any proof would still be entombed beneath miles of ice, far beyond our current reach. The fact that we have not yet found it, they argue, does not prove it isn't there. Indeed, the sheer, unimaginable scale of Antarctica makes it the ultimate hiding spot. The potential parallels between Antarctica and Plato's account go further than just disaster and location. Atlantis was depicted as a land of great natural wealth, boasting fertile plains, rich metal deposits, and a formidable naval fleet. During its warmer geological periods, Antarctica would have been incredibly fertile, covered in forests and crisscrossed by rivers. Some theorists even propose that its mountain ranges could still hold immense mineral riches, now inaccessible beneath the ice and protected by international agreements. This vision of a resource-rich land, now isolated from the world, has strong echoes of Plato's story. The shared narrative of immense abundance followed by total destruction is a powerful link. Cultural similarities also exist. Myths of lands that were drowned, frozen, or otherwise lost are found all over the globe. Stories of cataclysmic floods are present in the traditions of Mesopotamia, India, and the Americas. Legends of hidden southern lands appear in both Greek and Polynesian folklore. While these could all be independent cultural memories of localized disasters, some theorists see them as evidence of a single, shared origin, a global civilization whose heartland was lost in a worldwide catastrophe. In this grand theory, Atlantis is not a single city, but a symbol for an entire network of cultures that was erased by a dramatic shift in the planet's climate. If that were the case, Antarctica is the most logical candidate for their lost home. The appeal of this idea is rooted in something deeper than physical evidence. It's about symbolism. Atlantis has always stood for more than just a sunken city. It embodies the concept of forgotten greatness, of a golden age of knowledge and achievement that has been wiped from the historical record. By connecting this myth to Antarctica, people are doing more than just pinpointing a location on a map. They are suggesting that underneath all that ice lies the proof that the story of humanity is far more ancient and far stranger than we currently believe. Atlantis becomes a powerful metaphor for every mystery that the glaciers conceal, whether they be ancient ruins, undiscovered fossils, or simply landscapes we have yet to see. Those who are skeptical of the theory contend that the entire Antarctica-Atlantis link is constructed upon a very unstable base. Plato's own description of Atlantis contains many specific details that do not align with Antarctica's known geography. His story was almost certainly intended to be a moral lesson about the dangers of pride and imperial ambition, not a literal historical document. Furthermore, the supposed proofs, the ambiguous maps, strange anomalies, and ancient myths can all be explained through far less sensational means. Yet the theory's persistence demonstrates that it connects with a desire that runs deeper than a need for factual validation. There is a powerful human urge to believe in lost civilizations and undiscovered chapters of our own history. Antarctica, with its profound inaccessibility and its deep sense of mystery, provides the perfect canvas on which to paint those beliefs. Even discoveries from mainstream science help to keep the speculation going. The identification of ancient, ice-buried coastlines proves that Antarctica once had open seas and lush shores. The existence of subglacial lakes like Vostok reveals isolated ecosystems that have survived for millions of years. And strange magnetic anomalies hint at massive, unidentified structures deep beneath the ice. While each of these findings is scientifically important in its own right, they collectively paint a picture of a continent that is still brimming with secrets. And wherever there are secrets, the legend of Atlantis can easily take root. Cultural storytelling also fuels the public's fascination with an Antarctic Atlantis. A constant stream of books, films, and documentaries has woven the two concepts together, creating thrilling narratives about explorers discovering ancient ruins or scientists unearthing advanced technology that has been frozen for eons. While these tales are fictional, they work to solidify the association in the popular imagination. Over time, the idea of Atlantis in Antarctica transitions from a question of historical fact into a shared cultural myth. It taps into our collective need to imagine golden ages and lost worlds, and to see our past as being more magical and mysterious than our present. This theory also comes with a warning. Plato's Atlantis wasn't just a civilization that had an unfortunate accident. It was destroyed as a punishment for its own corruption, arrogance, and greed. In drawing a line from Atlantis to Antarctica, some see a cautionary tale that is incredibly relevant to our modern world. If an advanced civilization could be wiped out in the past, overwhelmed by forces it could not control, then our own civilization is just as vulnerable. The contemporary threats of climate change, rising sea levels, and ecological collapse all mirror the central themes of the Atlantis story. In that respect, the legend serves not just as a mystery from the distant past, but as a reflection of our most pressing present-day anxieties. We may never be able to confirm whether Atlantis truly lies beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. The ice is simply too thick, the continent is too vast, and any potential evidence remains far too elusive. But the theory itself is sure to endure because it satisfies both our curiosity and our imagination. It gives the ancient legend a physical space to inhabit, a place that is remote and hidden, yet tangible enough to keep the dream of its discovery alive. And even if it is never proven true, the very act of asking the question is enough to ensure that Antarctica will always remain a realm of myth and mystery. It's a place where science and mythology intersect, and where the line separating history from legend becomes wonderfully indistinct. Ultimately, the fascination with an Antarctic Atlantis isn't really about cartography at all. It speaks to a deep human need to discover meaning within the unknown, to anchor our myths in physical locations, and to entertain the belief that our collective story is far older and more epic than we currently comprehend. With Atlantis as the ultimate symbol of a lost world and Antarctica as the ultimate land of secrets, their combination forges a narrative simply too compelling to disappear. This is a story destined to captivate explorers, scientists, and dreamers for as long as the ice sheet guards its truths. When we think about ancient civilizations, our minds almost invariably turn to familiar landscapes. We picture fertile river valleys and warm coastlines, environments where farming could emerge and commerce could prosper. Known cradles of civilization like Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and China all fit this model, supported by an abundance of solid evidence. But then our curiosity wanders to other locations, the ones that don't slot easily into the conventional historical record. This brings us to a place like Antarctica, where direct proof is entirely missing, yet where conditions in the deep past could have been radically different. From this comes a simple but profound question. What if people once lived there? What if, buried beneath kilometers of ice, lie the remnants of human cultures that existed in a climate long since vanished, their cities and settlements frozen in time for millions of years? At first, the notion feels highly improbable. The geological timeline suggests that by the time modern humans came into being, Antarctica was already in its deep freeze. The fossil record tells a story of forests, unique animals, and even dinosaurs, but it contains no chapter on people. Imagination, however, is not bound by such limitations. Instead, it poses another question. What if our understanding of the timeline is wrong? Could civilizations have existed long before the periods we officially recognize? Is it possible that groups of humans or even pre-human cultures found their way to Antarctica during warmer geological intervals? History is filled with unexpected turns, and the field of archaeology is in a constant state of revision. Every time a discovery shows humans migrating earlier than we assumed or reveals artifacts in a place once deemed inaccessible, our collective story gets a new, expanded chapter. As one of the very last true blank spots on the global map, Antarctica issues an open invitation for such thinking. The journey into imagining an Antarctic civilization starts with its climate. Fossil evidence confirms without a doubt that the continent was once a verdant, thriving land. Great forests covered its surface, powerful rivers carved through its valleys, and diverse animal life prospered. For millions of years, vast stretches of Antarctica resembled modern-day New Zealand or the southern reaches of South America more than a frozen desert. Could a population have lived there during those lush epochs? If human ancestors, or perhaps an unknown intelligent species, inhabited Antarctica when it was habitable, any evidence they left behind would now be entombed under miles of ice. And since ice is as good at preserving as it is at hiding things, those traces could still be there, perfectly intact and waiting for discovery. The possibilities expand even further when we consider modern discoveries. Subglacial lakes, such as Vostok, Mercer, and Whillans, demonstrate that entire ecosystems can survive, sealed off from the world for millions of years. Microbes thrive in these dark, high-pressure environments, adapted to conditions we once believed were completely hostile to life. If simple organisms can persist in such profound isolation, is it not conceivable that evidence of more complex life could also survive? Picture a society that adapted first to a warm climate, and then to a cooling one, perhaps retreating into deep valleys and cave systems as the glaciers advanced, leaving behind their cultural fingerprints in pockets of land now completely sealed from the outside world. While science has yet to uncover this evidence, our imagination can readily fill in the details. Some theorists take this speculation to its logical conclusion, suggesting that ancient myths of lost civilizations like Atlantis might be the distorted cultural memories of a society that flourished on Antarctica before the ice consumed it. The narrative of a prosperous land suddenly wiped out by a natural catastrophe aligns perfectly with the image of a green Antarctica being swallowed by a relentless ice age. Legends of a great southern land are found in the writings of ancient Greek thinkers, in Polynesian oral traditions, and even in South American folklore. Could these be faint, generational echoes from a people who knew Antarctica not as a desolate wasteland, but as a vibrant, living world? Skeptics are quick to counter with timelines, pointing out that the warm periods that made Antarctica green had mostly concluded millions of years before humans evolved. However, proponents of these theories push back with their own set of questions. How certain can we be about the precise timing of human development? Is it possible that advanced cultures existed before Homo sapiens, leaving behind no recognizable trace? Could there be entire chapters of our planet's history that have been erased not just from memory, but from the physical world, leaving behind only faint clues in mythology and strange anomalies in scientific data? Mainstream science correctly states that the evidence is simply not there. Yet it is this very absence of evidence that keeps the flame of speculation burning so brightly. Antarctica's extreme inaccessibility makes it the ideal candidate for a hidden history, precisely because so little of its landmass can ever be directly studied. Even within the bounds of conventional archaeology, recent finds have repeatedly shown that humans reached distant places far earlier than was once thought possible. Sites discovered across the Americas suggest migrations occurred tens of thousands of years before the accepted models allowed. Stone tools have been unearthed in locations that force a complete rethinking of our species' migration routes and timelines. Each of these groundbreaking discoveries proves that ancient humans were more adaptable, more resilient, and more adventurous than previous theories ever gave them credit for. Viewed against this backdrop, imagining a human presence in ancient Antarctica feels less like pure fantasy and more like a logical extension of these ongoing surprises. If we are constantly underestimating what our ancestors were capable of, then perhaps we have underestimated their geographic reach as well. Satellite imagery adds another compelling layer to this speculation. On occasion, photographs of the continent reveal geometric shapes emerging from the ice, perfect triangles, long straight lines, and symmetrical patterns. The vast majority of these can be explained as natural geological features, mountains known as nunataks, ice formations sculpted by wind and pressure, or simply shadows playing tricks on our eyes. But for those who are already looking for signs of a lost civilization, these shapes appear as ancient ruins, eroded pyramids, buried temples, or massive walls. Even if these interpretations stretch far beyond the available evidence, they continue to circulate because the images themselves are authentic. The patterns are really there. What they truly represent remains open for debate. And wherever debate exists, imagination rushes in to fill the void. Magnetic anomalies only deepen the intrigue. Scientific readings taken over areas like Wilkes Land indicate the presence of massive structures or craters buried deep beneath the ice. While scientists lean toward geological explanations, such as a major asteroid impact or unusual underground rock formations, others can't help but ask, what if they are something else entirely? What if those anomalies are the magnetic signatures of forgotten technology or colossal architecture, hidden from view? Without the ability to conduct direct exploration, the question must remain unanswered, and unanswered questions provide fertile ground for speculation about forgotten civilizations. This idea also connects to a much larger and more resonant theme in human history: the inevitable rise and fall of societies. Over and over, great civilizations have flourished only to collapse, leaving behind only their ruins as a testament to their existence. From the Mayans and the Indus Valley Civilization to Mesopotamia and Easter Island, we see the same cyclical pattern of growth, achievement, and eventual decline. What if Antarctica holds another chapter in that epic cycle, one that was erased not by warfare or ecological mismanagement, but by the overwhelming force of climate change itself? If the ice advanced with sufficient speed, entire cities could have been entombed in a matter of days or weeks, preserved almost perfectly, as if captured in amber. This image resonates so strongly because it aligns with what we know about the power of natural forces and what we fear about our own civilization's fragility. Then there is the matter of restricted zones. Certain areas of Antarctica are designated as off-limits to everyone except a very small number of approved researchers. The official explanation for these restrictions is to protect extremely fragile ecosystems or to avoid hazardous regions. But for those inclined to suspect a cover-up, these zones are perceived as evidence of closely guarded secrets. If a civilization once existed under the ice, wouldn't modern governments want to keep such a paradigm-shifting discovery hidden until it could be properly controlled or explained? Again, no proof of this exists, but the combination of limited access and vast, unexplored landscapes is more than enough to fuel such a belief. The sheer scale of Antarctica allows these ideas to persist because so few people will ever have the opportunity to personally confirm or deny them. Even without any ruins to examine, our imagination lingers on what kind of culture could have possibly thrived in such a place. Were they a seafaring people, masters of the southern oceans who traded with other lands? Were they farmers who cultivated the fertile valleys during the planet's warmer epochs? Or were they something entirely different, a society adapted to polar conditions in ways we can barely comprehend? It's possible that myths of giants, technologically advanced beings, or even gods descending from the heavens are distorted reflections of such a lost culture. Survivors fleeing the advancing ice might have carried fragments of their sophisticated knowledge to other parts of the globe, seeding the myths and legends that still persist to this day. For many, this is the true allure of imagining ancient civilizations in Antarctica. The goal isn't necessarily about proving their existence with physical evidence. It's about exploring the profound implications of what it would mean if they had. It forces us to question the completeness of our own history. It serves as a powerful reminder that what we know is only ever a tiny fraction of what once was. And it opens up the thrilling possibility that human civilization is not as young or as linear as our textbooks suggest, but is instead part of a much deeper, more complex, and more mysterious story. While that deeper story may lie waiting, Antarctica is far from a silent continent. It might feel disconnected from human history, a realm so immense and remote that it appears immune to the drama of our civilizations. But a closer look reveals that this frozen land isn't just about the ancient past. It holds critical insights into our collective future. Hidden within its ice are precise chronicles of Earth's climate, containing signals from eras long before humans walked the Earth and providing stark warnings of what is to come. In its icy expanse, we find evidence not only of what has been erased by time, but also of what we all stand to lose if we choose not to listen. Antarctica serves as both a reflection and a guide, teaching us profound truths about strength, weakness, and the consequences of overstepping our planet's natural boundaries. One of the most direct lessons is communicated through ice cores. These long cylinders of ice are essentially timelines drilled from the glaciers, with every layer offering a glimpse into the Earth's atmosphere across hundreds of thousands of years. They show us that our climate is not a constant, but a dynamic system, one that has repeatedly shifted between deep freezes and periods of warmth. But they also reveal a more alarming truth. The speed of current environmental changes has no parallel in the ancient data. Levels of carbon dioxide, which once fluctuated gradually over millennia, have surged in the span of mere centuries. Methane concentrations are spiking with a sharpness and intensity unseen in nearly 1 million years of records. With a calm, factual precision, the ice demonstrates that what we are doing to the planet today is utterly without precedent, carrying a clear lesson that our activities can alter Earth's climate in ways we are dangerously unprepared for. Antarctica is also a teacher on the subject of thresholds. For very long periods, ice remains a symbol of stability, but it possesses the capacity for sudden and catastrophic collapse. The geological archives contain proof of ice sheets breaking apart in astonishingly rapid events, triggering sea level rises of several meters within just a few decades. These are not far-fetched scenarios. They are historical realities our planet has already endured. The ice shelves of West Antarctica, which are already showing signs of thinning and fracturing, serve as a potent reminder that colossal systems can seem unshakable right up until they hit a tipping point. Once that line is crossed, the resulting change can be both rapid and irreversible. This lesson extends beyond the polar ice. It's about us. Human civilizations are built upon a foundation of stability, relying on predictable weather patterns and consistent coastlines. A collapse of the ice, a surge in sea levels, and a violent shift in climate could make our own stability disappear with equal swiftness. Another vital lesson concerns the principle of interconnection. While Antarctica may appear to be a world away, events there resonate across the entire planet. The powerful winds that circulate the continent are the engine for ocean currents that span the globe. The Southern Ocean acts as a crucial buffer, absorbing vast amounts of heat and carbon dioxide that would otherwise lead to more extreme global warming. The ice itself reflects sunlight back into space, helping to moderate Earth's temperature. When Antarctica undergoes change, the entire global system feels the effects. As glaciers melt, they release immense volumes of fresh water into the oceans, which changes salinity and disrupts currents. When ice recedes, it uncovers darker ocean and land surfaces that absorb more heat, creating a feedback loop that speeds up warming. The continent's message is that no location is truly an island. What unfolds at the poles directly influences the tropics, the deserts, the forests, and the very cities where we make our homes. To view Antarctica as separate from our everyday existence is to dangerously underestimate how interconnected our world systems truly are. Beyond the climate, Antarctica demonstrates the incredible power of resilience. Against seemingly impossible odds, life finds a way to exist there. In an environment that would be fatal to most species, penguins, seals, and whales manage to thrive. Microbes flourish in subglacial lakes that have been cut off from the world for millions of years. Hardy plants find purchase on bare rock, surviving with minimal soil and warmth. These organisms are masters of adaptation, endurance, and persistence in the most hostile setting on the planet. For humanity, this lesson is both inspiring and sobering. It proves that life can hold on even under the most extreme conditions. At the same time, it shows that such survival often demands simplicity and limitation. A civilization built on principles of abundance and staggering complexity may not be able to adapt as readily as a microbe frozen in the ice. There is also a powerful lesson in humility. Antarctica stands as one of the least explored regions on our planet. A great deal of what is concealed by its ice sheet remains a complete mystery, and even our most advanced satellites and instruments have not solved all of its puzzles. We are still unaware of the full scale of its subglacial mountain ranges, its hidden valleys, and its vast underground lakes. We are not yet able to account for every strange pattern that appears in its magnetic field or on its radar scans. The lesson is straightforward yet deeply important. We do not have all the answers. In an era where humanity often acts as if it has mastered the globe, Antarctica serves as a stark reminder that immense parts of our world are still beyond our complete comprehension. This sense of humility is vital for navigating the future with wisdom. Recognizing our own ignorance isn't a weakness. It's an invitation to keep learning, to proceed with caution, and to avoid the kind of arrogance that is so dangerous when facing forces far greater than ourselves. For those who dream of lost civilizations buried in the ice, Antarctica provides a lesson of a different sort. Whether or not any ruins are ever discovered, the very concept holds significance. It reminds us how easily entire eras of history can be completely erased. Cities crumble, empires fade away, and even when they leave traces, time ultimately covers them over. If Antarctica teaches us one thing about civilization, it is that the idea of permanence is a fantasy. The ice might conceal incredible secrets, but even if it holds nothing more than ancient forests and fossils, it still illustrates just how fragile our collective memory can be. The things we construct today are not guaranteed to last, and the only genuine path to endurance lies in knowledge and adaptation, not in monuments of steel or walls of stone. Antarctica also brings us face to face with the conflict between preservation and exploitation. At present, the continent is safeguarded by international treaties that prohibit military activity and mining, dedicating it to science and peaceful cooperation. However, these protections are not set in stone. The lure of minerals beneath its mountains and resources within its oceans is a constant temptation for nations and corporations alike. As pressures on a global scale intensify, so too does the danger that Antarctica will eventually be viewed not as a sanctuary, but as a prize to be claimed. The lesson here is one of self-control. The continent shows us the steep price of exploitation, revealing how easily delicate ecosystems can be shattered and how the climate can be dangerously destabilized. But it also demonstrates the profound value of working together. The Antarctic Treaty stands as one of history's rare successes, where nations collectively agreed to set aside a territory for shared stewardship rather than for conquest. That framework, however delicate, might be the single most crucial lesson Antarctica has to offer, that cooperation is achievable, even in a world so often defined by division. An additional lesson is found within the ice itself. When researchers drill deep cores and analyze the tiny bubbles of ancient air trapped inside, they are reminded that the planet has a memory. Absolutely nothing we do ever truly disappears. The soot from long-extinguished fires, the ash from volcanic eruptions, and the trace gases from our own industries are all meticulously recorded. The Earth maintains its own chronicle, whether we bother to write things down or not. In this way, Antarctica is like a silent but perfectly accurate witness to history. The lesson this provides is one of accountability. The consequences of our actions today will be clearly legible to future generations, not just in our records or ruins, but etched into the very chemistry of the planet. Long after our cities have turned to dust, the ice will remember what we did, and that stark reality ought to inform how we behave right now. Even the myths connected to Antarctica contain their own lessons. The tales of Atlantis, of vanished lands, and of great civilizations wiped out by catastrophe all speak to deep-seated human anxieties about our own fragility and our struggle for survival. It doesn't matter if such civilizations ever actually existed under the ice. The myths themselves reveal our innate understanding that nature is immensely powerful, that change can be terrifyingly sudden, and that hubris often precedes a great fall. By linking these legends to Antarctica, we are essentially telling ourselves a story about our own limitations and the critical need to respect forces that are far beyond our control. The point is not to prove that the legends are factually true, but to understand the reasons we continue to tell them. They are warnings passed down in the form of stories, and Antarctica offers the perfect, vast, and mysterious canvas for them. And all of these stories serve as a backdrop for the most critical warnings of all. Ultimately, every lesson Antarctica offers converges on a single, vital point. Our future depends entirely on our willingness to pay attention. Its ice is receding faster than anticipated, triggering consequences that ripple across the entire globe. Swelling oceans now threaten coastal cities, altered currents throw weather systems into chaos, and ecosystems are collapsing under the immense strain. These are not speculative events in a distant future. They are realities unfolding before our very eyes. The continent is signaling what lies ahead just as clearly as its ice cores once chronicled the distant past. The message it sends is one of urgency. To dismiss it is to risk the same oblivion we imagine for civilizations lost to time. To embrace it is to understand that the decisions made today will write the final chapter of our own story. Antarctica's voice isn't heard in words, but felt in the profound silence, the biting wind, and the thunderous crash of ice calving into the sea. Its truths are not buried but are in plain sight for anyone who dares to look. From its slow-moving glaciers, the continent imparts patience. From its sudden ice shelf collapses, it teaches urgency. From its endless mysteries, it instills humility, and through its frozen archives, it demands accountability. These are not mere philosophical concepts. They are the practical principles that determine whether a civilization will endure or perish. If we can absorb these lessons, Antarctica might become less of a tomb for forgotten worlds and more of a blueprint for saving our own. There's a peculiar quality to how Antarctica occupies the mind, resisting the neat classifications we apply to other continents. Africa is honored as humanity's cradle and Europe as the theater of empires. We see Asia as a land of ancient grandeur and the Americas as realms of discovery and revolution. Antarctica, however, stands alone, not for a lack of history, but because its history remains concealed. Each expedition to comprehend it generates more questions than it answers, uncovering new layers of complexity buried beneath the ice. When we pull back from the maps, the fossils, and the magnetic anomalies, what's left is a powerful awareness. This frozen landscape is not an empty void but a massive echo chamber, reflecting both the planet's ancient past and its impending future. For centuries, humanity paid little attention to Antarctica, not from a lack of imagination, but from an inability to reach it. The ancient Greeks conceived of a great southern land, Terra Australis, needed to balance the known world. Cartographers dutifully sketched a blank shape at the bottom of their maps to provide the globe with symmetry. Antarctica existed in the mind long before anyone had laid eyes on it. When it was finally spotted in the 19th century, it first appeared to be nothing more than a lifeless, sterile wasteland. Yet with every new piece of knowledge, we learned it was anything but empty. It was a library of Earth's climates, a fortress of ice, a sanctuary for life that defied all odds, and maybe a vault holding secrets we have yet to even imagine. The progression of our understanding reveals a simple truth. Antarctica has always been more than it seemed. To think of this as a farewell is a mistake, because no one truly leaves Antarctica behind after encountering it, even just through stories. The continent fundamentally reshapes our perception of time. A glacier operates on a scale beyond human speed. An ice core is indifferent to a single lifetime. This land exists on a timeline that dwarfs our cities, our dynasties, and our entire civilizations. Standing on its shores inspires the realization that all human endeavors are temporary against the persistence of ice. And yet, that very ice is not eternal. It shifts, melts, and breaks away, drifting out to a warmer sea. The great paradox of Antarctica is that it is simultaneously ancient and fragile, enduring and precarious. To say goodbye is simply to acknowledge that its silence will continue long after we have turned away. The dreams people attach to Antarctica are as diverse as those who dream them. For some, it is the dream of pure exploration, the desire to stand where few have stood and survive a land that tests the limits of human endurance. For others, it's a dream of discovery, of unearthing fossils that rewrite the story of evolution or finding data that unlocks the secrets of our climate. And for a great many, it is the dream of lost civilizations, of ancient cities or temples perfectly preserved beneath the ice sheet. Each of these aspirations reveals as much about us as it does about the continent. Antarctica serves as a canvas where humanity projects its deepest fears, its greatest hopes, and its most profound questions. It reflects not just the sun from its glaciers, but the innermost longings of the human spirit. This reflective nature makes Antarctica one of the most symbolic places on Earth, a land of powerful contradictions. Its white surface suggests purity, yet it conceals the violent scars of ancient volcanoes and cosmic impacts. Its deep silence suggests emptiness, but it hides abundant life in its oceans and resilient microbes in its frozen soil. Its remoteness suggests irrelevance, yet its influence on our climate, currents, and sea levels makes it central to the fate of the planet. Every one of these paradoxes only deepens its mystery and reinforces the idea that Antarctica is not just a location, but a living presence. When we consider the echoes of time emanating from Antarctica, we are forced to confront our own diminutive scale. Dinosaurs once thrived there, in forests that grew where glaciers now stand miles high. Millions of years ago, mammals wandered its coastlines. Even in its current frozen state, the continent has recorded our impact. From industrial pollution to greenhouse gases, the ice remembers more than we ever could, holding the whispers of ages we can barely comprehend. Those whispers will certainly outlast us. To dream of Antarctica is to accept that time is immense, and our own existence is just a fleeting note in the symphony it preserves. At the same time, Antarctica pulls us directly into the future. The destiny of its vast ice sheets will reshape our coastlines, our economies, and our societies. The health of its surrounding seas will dictate the vitality of marine life across the globe. The climate signals it sends will determine weather patterns thousands of miles away. In this way, Antarctica is not just a monument to what has been, but a stark warning of what is to come. The echoes we hear are not only from the past, but are the reverberations of our own choices, bouncing forward through time. The dream of Antarctica is one of mystery and memory, but also one of consequence. It is remarkable how often the continent humbles those who meet it face to face. Explorers have described feeling utterly insignificant. Scientists speak of being overwhelmed by its sheer scale. Even the most pragmatic visitors will admit the place changes how they view the Earth, forcing them to reckon with the reality that this world is not ours alone, and that human history is but a fraction of planetary time. This humility might be one of the greatest gifts Antarctica has to offer. In a world where arrogance so often fuels destruction, humility is an invaluable and scarce resource. There is also a strange comfort in knowing that some secrets may still be hidden there. In an age where satellites have mapped every street and drones have photographed every peak, Antarctica is a reminder that mystery still exists. Entire mountain ranges lie buried under the ice, with valleys no one has seen and lakes that have been sealed for millions of years. Even if no lost city is ever found, the potential for discovery is eternal. The echoes of time are not fading away. They are invitations, calling us to listen more carefully, to look deeper, and to question more boldly. This is how Antarctica resists becoming just another place on the map. It insists on remaining an enigma. Therefore, the farewell we offer is not an ending, but a pause. It is a recognition that our time with it is always short and that we can only ever see fragments before we must depart. But in that brief encounter, we are given something that lasts, a new perspective on history, nature, and ourselves. We see that civilizations rise and they fall, climates change, memory is fragile, and the planet itself endures. We learn that imagination is as fundamental to Antarctica as its ice and rock. Without imagination, the continent is just a white emptiness. With it, it becomes a universe of infinite possibilities. To dream of Antarctica is to dream of endurance, of silence, and of secrets. To hear its echoes is to hear not just the story of a planet, but the story of humanity itself, our curiosity, our ambition, and our deep longing to connect with something larger than ourselves. Perhaps this is why Antarctica feels like both a farewell and a return. It sends us away with more questions than we arrived with, yet it continually pulls us back, reminding us that as long as there is ice, silence, and imagination, mystery will never truly be gone. We have reached the edge of the map for tonight. The archives of Mythic Index are closing, but the history remains. If this journey offered you rest or realization, please leave a like before you go. Comment which era or myth you wish to explore in our next session, and subscribe to ensure the library doors are open for you again tomorrow.